welcome to the broadcast. This is Morning Cafe and my name is Linda Alela. We have so much in store for you this morning and we are excited to do this as we always do. Karibu sana. It is good that you are here and of course a beautiful morning as we look forward to a great day ahead. As always, it is so much so, a show that is stored up with great stuff for you, great stuff in terms of education. We get to entertain you, we inform you on what is happening, and we just have those kind of discussions that revolve around the matters that are of importance to us. And what's important is that you should be part and parcel of this conversation. We always have ways where we get to interact. Your feedback is valued. Sometimes we go through them and we understand a different view of what it is that we are discussing. And this morning, we'll be discussing the political situation in the country. We also look at these tough times for Deputy President William Ruto, as we will say. The hunter has become the hunted. What is informing this? Just how evil of a person is he, or is it the political gimmicks that we always witness, not just in the country but across? They say politics is a tight game, so the few who get into that, they know what to expect. We'll be looking into the intrigues of the same. We'll also take a look at the developments of the different issues that are culminating in regards to matters of politics. But also later on, last week we had a conversation with Dr. Julius and Dr. Jane Kimani on how best do we raise our boy child, and we are extending this conversation some more. This is due to public demand. This is due to what it is that some of us felt we should do. And we say, or we talk about the influences that are in existence or influencing factors on the growth of a boy child, on the raising up of a boy child. So we'll be asking all these questions. Being raised with a single mother, does it have an effect? Being raised with a dad and a mom, does it have an effect? How do you go about it? And just what informs the ills that we've witnessed today with our young kids. So indeed a conversation that you want to be part and parcel of, and keep it right here. We'll be coming with that later on towards the last hour of the program. So karibu sana. Hashtag Morning Cafe is how you interact with us. Drop those comments. We get to sample them as we proceed. Twitter at Linda_Alela, TV47KE. The numbers to call, the SMS short code, all will be running down on your screen. We'd love your feedback and we proceed. And now let's take a look at what is on the newspapers briefly before we delve deep into the same. And on the papers this morning, the Daily Nation, here we are, cornered Uhuru's surprise demand on Raila, and Jubilee dangles deputy governor's seat, but new condition is likely to put Mr. Odinga in an awkward position at a time he has launched an image suppressing a campaign and distancing himself from the Jubilee administration's failures, even as ODM pushes for more concrete benefits in the Building Bridges Initiative agreement. A story captured on page 4. Like I said, these are some of the things that we'll be looking at as we proceed. And we also have this one that is different. Kanyotu Billion's fresh twist in the fight for control of former spy chief James Kanyotu's multi-billion business empires as new claimant enters the scene. As always, you know what happens in regards to this, and in most cases, this is not the first time that we've seen this. Yes, like I say, in most cases, you have these individuals who have so much wealth, but you find that there's always a tussle that comes along in regards to this particular wealth. A story captured on page 11. And Biden here at last, U.S. President-elect, that is Joe Biden, will be sworn in today as the Donald Trump presidency ends, turning the page on some of the most disruptive and divisive years the United States has ever seen. This goes down in history, and it's a story captured on page 25. We'll also be having ourselves, our team working on these particular stories, the events, and how these celebrations will be conducted, and we get to update you accordingly. That is later on, of course. Now they are sleeping and they will be waking up somewhere later in the afternoon. We give you updates of these. Numbers fail to add up in county cash allocation. Counties should now expect should not expect any new money even after the national cake allocator proposed that they receive about 300 billion in equal or equitable share for the next financial year. In its proposal, the Commission on Revenue Allocation has renamed the funds that devolved units have been receiving all along as it struggled to deliver on President Kenyatta's pledge to give the 47 regional outfits over 50 billion shillings more. That is a story on the back page, and also on some of these other newspapers that we have. That is on the front page, and we look at that and the intrigues of the same and what it means in terms of making activities move at the level of the counties. The governors have cried foul for the longest of time in regards to the disbursement of funds. They say there's late disbursement, and some of them up until today say that for 3 months they have not received anything. But away from it, crisis as hotels stay closed. The COVID-19 pandemic has rendered at least 230,000 jobless. That is in the hotel industry, and across different industries, about 1.7 Kenyans lost their jobs. And this is a story captured on page 7. Just speaks of how terrible the situation is. It gets dire, and just how best we can be able to get ourselves at that mode of revamp. And Bensouda wins again. Lawyer Paul Isheru continues to run out of luck at the ICC. What is playing out there? A story captured on page 8. We get to look at it later on as we proceed. The Standard newspaper. End of Trump era, Biden's huge task as he takes the office. That has been captured on page 2, 3, and 4 of the Standard newspaper. But away from it, Uhuru's new debt plan as China offers a breather. And I think most argued that it was necessary that China gives the country a breather. That, of course, will be in solidarity, or, just as what we had seen with other lenders that lended the country something. So President to equally see to it that they prioritize public and private partnerships to ensure that all these conversations are ongoing, and most importantly, the monies that come out of the debt, or the monies that we have acquired out of debt, are able to be generated so we are able to service that debt. And that is a story, like I said, that is on page 10 of the Standard newspaper. To some bit of politics, Ruto's moment of reckoning. Is it a moment of reckoning, or just what is happening? The political narratives that continue to be coined, and the top leaders heighten criticism against the Deputy President William Ruto is technically what we'll be discussing this morning. And we look at it, we see the political angles to it, the interests of the same. Is it witch hunt? Is it genuine? And what this would mean for his 2022 political bid, and equally the bid of many other leaders that are involved in this. Police recover guns in dramatic 3.5 million daytime bank robbery. I think you've been seeing this video that has been making rounds on social media in regards to this syndicate. That played out yesterday at Prime Bank, that should be in Mombasa Road. Yes, is a story that is ongoing. Investigations are ongoing, and details will be given or will be surfacing as and when the police are able to go out there and speak of the same. National leads big winners into county revenue share, and that is one that needs to be a conversation, and just how genuine this is going to be, and how quick will this money get to the level of the county so that they can enjoy the benefits of the same. And this is the big story on the People Daily. Counties bag about 54 billion more in a new deal, and Nairobi, Nakuru, Kiambu, and Turkana, the biggest beneficiaries, will get the lion's share of additional cash that is to be allocated next financial year, while Tharaka Nithi, Nyamira, and Vihiga will receive the least. A story captured on page 4 of the People Daily, and also right in front you can see it gives you an overview of what they received year 2020-2021 and what is to be received year 2021 and 2022. And yes, the leading county allocations, and we'll be following delving deep into the same. And we see how much of reactions we're going to get from the governors from these respective, counties. Moving on, and high stakes as experts discuss vaccine rollout. Meeting comes against backdrop of World Health Organization warning that rich countries were hoarding COVID jabs. That is a story, like I said, is on page 2, and here it is. And also issues on priorities, who are the key issues that need to be addressed, and who are the key people that are going to get priority when we get this vaccine into the country, and how best we get to balance the act is one thing that is being discussed as at now. And so we'll be following up on the events of this to update you. We always have Zainab, who's also our health reporter, following up on these details. Raila rallies troops to counter anti-BBI wave at grassroots. That's the story captured on page 6, still on the politics of the nation. There's so much lined up for you, and we'll be looking at that later on as we proceed with the broadcast. And we have the daily diary. We also have the quote of the day before we take a look at what is happening on the road. So first, what do you expect for the day? That is on Morning Cafe's daily diary. And as always, you say a day is culminated with so much that happens, but this one, the Cabinet Secretary for Matters Education, Professor George Magoha, will today meet Deputy County Commissioner, Regional Director of Education, and Sub-County Directors of Education, that is of Nairobi County, at Our Lady of Fatima Girls Secondary School in Kariobangi North. And we'll be having our education reporters down on ground, and they get to, of course, tell us what it is that the CES for Matters Education will be speaking about, even as we get to about 2-3 weeks of schools reopening. And as they reopen, the assessment processes started, but again, marred with a lot of controversies. And then we can only hope that it is all well with our children. As we take a look at the events of the day, we'll be updating you as and when this information hits our desk. First, again, it is important that we get into that moment of, just getting to get words that will kickstart your day in a good note, words that will remind you of your value, words that will tell you of the beauty of life, and that should be on the quotes of the day.
Quote of the day: you always pass failure on the way to success.
And there you go. You have the quote of the day, and away from the quote of the day, let's get to the roads. What is happening on the roads? How much of traffic is out there, or how much of an ease is it for you as you step out of the house this morning? We always say, if you want it to be safe, just step out early. That is always the best medicine, early enough. If you're supposed to get to a place, try and get out of the house about 2 hours before, because you never know what happens in the roads. That is in Nairobi. Nairobi can really be something. 1 minute it is not raining, the next minute it is raining heavy, and traffic is terrible on the roads. But well, from what I see on the maps, evidently it is not so bad this morning. Starting from where we are around Westlands and Parklands Road, all this is Parklands Roads. This is where we are, and evidently there is not much of traffic on these sides of Parklands, and so that is to tell you that there is no cause for alarm. That is 2. And from town, Parklands Road, as you come down, you come and connect to these sides of Pangani. Pangani gets you to Thika Road. Well, somewhere around Pangani there's some bit of traffic, as you can see, as you're headed to town, but it is not as bad. But actually, come to think of it, coming all these sides to Thika Road, somewhere around from Drive-In, going all the way to Survey, going all the way to somewhere around Muthaiga, there's a bit of a snarl up. The you can tell with this line, red line. So that means if you're stepping out from the house, Thika Road is not so beautiful. And if you need to, it is important that you take this advantage, step out almost immediately, because it's just a matter of time before it becomes terrible. And you can as well see that somewhere around Clay Eden Estate, Clay Works here, around Zimmerman there, the light just is right before you get to Githurai, or if you're coming from Githurai and you're headed to town, you can see there's this bit of traffic. The red tells you that that's a bit of a snarl up. I hope there's nothing bad that is happening right there, because it's not so common to get such. And all this is Thika Road, and so that traffic tells you that it starts somewhere around Githurai there. So you need to be aware of what to expect if you are coming from Thika Road and moving on to these sides of the city. And this is around Allsops here. And so let's take a look at what is happening on Outer Ring Road. Yes, Outer Ring Road this morning is pretty much of an ease. You get to some point, you find some bit of traffic somewhere around Donholm there, as you can see right here, but it's not so heavy, or it's not so huge of a traffic, and bringing you all the way to Embakasi, and this is Airport Road. Airport Road is not bad this morning all the way coming here. The only bit where there's a bit of traffic is where you get to connect to the Eastern Bypass, and the Eastern Bypass this morning is evidently clear if you're taking that direction. Somewhere right on top here is where you get some bit of traffic around the Eastern Bypass, around Mihango there, Utawala, but it is not so heavy. This is around there. This is Kangundu Road. Well, Kangundu Road is pretty much of an ease this morning, and if you're going all the way to Ruai, Eastern Bypass, it is easy this morning. Let's bring ourselves back to the city where most people would want to get to, and Mombasa Road is bad in a way. So let's go down from around Mlolongo here, and this is around Mlolongo. So as you're headed to town, up, as you can see, there's a bit of traffic that is moving, some bit of a snarl up, and this is somewhere around Gateway Mall. You can see this is traffic along Gateway Mall, and Mombasa Road proceeds all the way, traffic up to Samia Business Park, traffic up to Cabanas. This is Cabanas. There is traffic all the way to Imara Daima. There is some bit of bad traffic, so if you're taking that direction, and you know also when you're coming to this connection, when you're coming all the way from Embakasi, you expect to get some bit of traffic down there, and moving on, it eases up until you get to around there where you get that T junction or that connection to the Southern Bypass, that is around Next Gen Mall. This tells you that as you're headed to the city, you expect all this traffic, and this gets you to around the roundabout where it connects with Lusaka Road. Evidently, Lusaka Road is not bad this morning, and then Langata Road equally is not equally bad. But now when you're coming from Mombasa Road is when you get some bit of traffic as you get to connect to that. This is somewhere around Bunyala Road. Bunyala Road this morning all the way to Elgon Road is pretty much of an ease. A commercial street, it is not so bad when you're getting those sides of DT Dobi, and that means around Capital Center in Mombasa Road or at Mombasa Road, it's an ease. This is Langata Road, and Langata Road all the way is not bad whether you're going or you're coming out of town. Connects you to the bypass or the Southern Bypass. The Southern Bypass is also okay this morning, and those are the key roads. So Mombasa Road, Coast for Alarm, some bit of traffic around Thika Road. This is Jogoo Road. Also, you can tell that there's a bit of traffic around Jogoo Road. Let me just pull it up a bit so you're able to see this. This is Jogoo Road as you headed to the city. So that means around Makadara there, as you come these sides, you expect to get some bit of snarl-ups or a bit of small traffics, and going all the way gets you to that point somewhere around Kaloleni, somewhere around Bama Market. Some bit of traffic as you're trying to get your way into the city, so you know what to expect when you're taking that direction. This sides of Muthura, not so bad. Ring Road this morning is equally not so bad. Around Ngara, it is not badly off. Nairobi Gymkhana, around there, pretty much of an ease. Getting to Limuru Road. Limuru Road this morning also is not so bad, as you can see, not so much of traffic activities. Let's see on these other sides whether there is a course for Wari and yes, Wayaki Way. Waiyaki Way this morning. At some bit is when you get some bit of traffic. When you're around somewhere, you get to connect to the sides of Uthiru and Kaptanga Road, but it is not so heavy. So that means if you're taking Waiyaki Road, it is not badly off going all the way down, and a different direction altogether. Let's see, as we get to the sides of Kawangware. Well, Kawangware, this size this morning, Gitanga Road is pretty much of an ease. This is Gitanga Road. So Gitanga Road is not so bad. You come and connect to Oloitoktok, you connect to Kikambala Road. It is good this morning. And so Ngong Road, here we are. I guess we're going to be winding up at Ngong Road. Ngong Road is not so bad, as ugly as we're used to having on Ngong Road. Sometimes when you're headed to town or you're out of town, there is a bit of traffic as you get to connect around Oledume Road, Impala Club, somewhere around there. That is at the Ngong Road. There's a bit of traffic, but it is not bad. You're coming all the way to Naivasha Road. It's pretty much of an ease this morning, where you get to connect to around Nyanjui Road and Kikuyu Road is where you'd get some bit of traffic somewhere around here, but that tells you it is traffic that is moving. That's more like it on the roads this morning, and I will update you when we get any developments. As always, we say you can be active on our social media platforms. Tell us what is happening around where you are. If you are on the road, you're watching us live, kindly alert us, and we'll definitely be getting to have our viewers get to know what is happening. It's always good to help each other, because Nairobi can be crazy when it comes to traffic. You help me today, I get to help you tomorrow. Now, we all have like so much that we'll be looking at later on. But first, let's take a quick breather, and we'll be coming back with the newspapers and also what my team has prepared in Live with News.
Strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind. Every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant and the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind. Every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant and the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of
The hunter being the hunted is what we'll be talking about. That is on the interview segment, which will start not long from now. But we first take a look at what is on the newspapers. And this morning we have Joy Mdivo. It's been a minute, who's joining us via Skype. Joy is that one person I say, you know what, like she's really dear to us. Every morning we wake her up and she is always on standby and on time to grace the set. Joy, good morning. Happy New Year.
It's nice to see you.
It's long since we heard from you, but we are happy to have you. You're amongst the people we closed the year with, and thankfully, again, it's still too young, so we can say we are opening the year alongside you. How have you been?
I am thankful. My family are all well, and we are very thankful to God.
All right, I'm excited to hear about what you think about the political events in the country. So much has happened from that time we were talking matters BBI. That is when the document was out there, having been launched fresh, and we said Kenyans should read and all that. So we would love to hear whether you think there's so much progress that has come out of this. But away from it, let's first of all introduce the rest of the guests. We'll be having Nathaniel Mung'are, ANC Youth spokesperson, joining us. He's just gotten into the studio, and so in a few you'll get to see him. But importantly, we have the Member of Parliament, Embakasi North, Honorable James Gakuya. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
All right, and yes, we have so much lined up for the viewer back at home, and we'd love to hear from them. But before we even get into that, Muhesh, let's take a look at the papers first. And we have the People Daily, the Standard newspaper, and the Daily Nation. This one on the People Daily is a story that I'd be interested to hear your view on the same, especially at this point when we're talking about the growth of devolution, disbursement of funds to the level of the counties, and the fact that we've had the Council of Governors, different governors, complaining that it's been almost 4 months now before monies were sent to the counties. So activities are stalled up. Just how genuine can the government be in terms of ensuring that they boost, devolution? And counties bag about 54 billion more in this particular new deal. They speak of Nairobi, Nakuru, Kiambu, and Turkana being the biggest beneficiaries, and they'll be getting the lion's share of the additional cash. But the likes of Vihiga, Tharaka Nithi will be on the lower end. A story that has been captured on page 4 of the People Daily. Here we are. Counties swimming in billions. Are they really swimming in billions, Mahesh?
Later the billions are here in paper. What is very hard is to convert the papers into hard cash. I am aware that in fact this country has been undergoing a very serious strain in what we call cash strain. Let me say, as soon as we started experiencing the side effects of the pandemic, and not only Kenya, which has been performing poorly economically. Worldwide, I think those countries which were heavily hit by corona pandemic actually economically are doing doom. It's only those strong economies like America and China and Europe which have survived. But most of African countries that actually are developing economically, most of them were seriously affected. But that does not mean that we are not realizing our targets in terms of revenue collection. What I would say is that there have been issues right from the allowed August when the Treasury started crying over that things are not going on well. But me, I'm afraid, because going to the targets given to the KRA, it's like the KRA has been always realizing their targets. Yeah. So my worry is where is the rain falling up? Because actually, if the domestically we have achieved our target in terms of collection, it tells you we require to see that in terms of distribution. Development. And when we are finding a situation of 6 months with the delays of dispersing money to counties, that is a cash hand strip, which is not a very good direction
and true
to the growth of our devolution units.
And this report came in just the other day. KRA celebrating the fact that yes, they've been able, to hit the targets that they would have expected amid the tough times of COVID-19, and just bringing in joy again. One of the key things that probably has driven the conversation on matters BBI is about allocation of funds to the levels of the county. The BBI brings a very beautiful proposal in regards to making the best of devolution. But the question then comes in on the mechanisms that are going to be incorporated to see this as a success. The modes and ways that are going to be pushed to ensure that this happens. And why the question marks are cropping up is simply because of what we witnessed today. The fact that, yes, even the little amounts of money that are supposed to be given to the counties have not been, given that sacredly. They've not been, distributed sacredly as people would expect. And so even as we celebrate this, addition to the kitties, the question is just how genuine is it going to be? And do we really honestly have these funds to ensure that it gets to that level of the county? Or again, we'll be talking about a push and pull affair, when it comes to the next financial year.
Thank you so much, Linda. We've had a conversation on this panel before.
Yes.
With Honorable Buyasi Sakwa, when he's been talking about the bill that he's proposing about a public debt financing authority.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the problem that we have, because we could be raising our funds as expected. As Mheshimiwa has said, KRA in fact is celebrating that milestone, that they were able to collect revenue on target and even surpass the target a little bit. So it means we are doing the right things in terms of trying to raise the revenue that we need to move forward. But if our obligations exceed our revenue collection, then anybody who does budgeting, even simply in the house, if I want to buy things in the supermarket worth 20,000 and I earn 12, then I'll have to leave stuff worth 6,000 out of my shopping basket. And I think that's where Kenya is finding herself right now. As we talk about public debt financing, I think one of the things that we are looking forward, as we move forward, we need to relook. For example, the counties are supposed to raise revenue in their counties, but part of this revenue is still surrendered back to national governments and then resubmitted back to the counties. Maybe it is time for us to start looking at a way of the counties being able to continue spending at source what they raise, account for the same, such that the disbursement from the national kitty is only a top-up. So that way, there's no time the county governments will be talking about, we are hamstrung, we cannot work because there's been no disbursement. Because as Mheshimiwa says, you can look at your bank balance and be told, you know what, County X, you've got X amount of shillings allocated to you and this is what is rightfully yours. But if you go to your central bank account and you want to transfer it to your commercial bank account for transactions, and central bank tells you, not today, come tomorrow, then there's a problem. And you'll find, like, if it was ordinary citizens, that's when you'd have this phenomenon when they call a run of the banks, where you decide, you know what, we're running away from this bank because you can't get your money when you want it. You have to go to this other bank. But be that as it may, we are also in a global depression, a global recession. So it is something that, as Mheshimiwa has said, we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves as well. This is a time when we are renegotiating our debt, we are renegotiating the scheduling of how we are going to pay. We are trying to see if we can get a tax holiday. And our development partners have been quite understanding on this score. What we need to do is now, this time that we have been given by China, and this time that we have been given by the Paris Club, how do we utilize it to actually situate ourselves so that what we are given a tax holiday for translates into ease a little bit later in the year. Because this year promises to be a better year. Not only is there the hope of a brighter tomorrow, but this year people have gone back to work. Economy is picking up again. So if we are given that time, if the government is very strategic in how they utilize our tax holiday, we'll find that we're able to dig ourselves out of this hole and just get on the trajectory for recovery economically.
All right, and speaking of utilizing and just how best we do this, accountability is one thing that has become a problem. And even at the level of the county, as much as they would demand for more, they would ask for more. The question then is, where is the accountability? How much is being done at the level of these counties that we can confidently say that, you know what, when monies are taken to the counties, then we have the best. Every other time, you will hear county workers on strike. Every other time, you will hear them saying that, we've done projects for the county, but we've not been paid for all this. Do you suppose there are likelihoods where this money, in the event that it goes there, there's going to be change in terms of making devolution work, in terms of ensuring that this money is put to use, genuine use for that matter, and the people in their respective counties are able to benefit, out of this. This, even as I get to welcome you officially on Said Nathaniel.
Thank you so much, Linda, for having me today, and good morning to our viewers. First of all, I want to agree and share my sentiments with Mheshimiwa and Joy. Devolution is something that is working for many Kenyans.
Yeah.
In 2005, there is somebody who died because of defending devolution when we were doing the Bomas Constitutional Conference, Dr. Crispin Mbai. So devolution is an idea that has been fought for, and many people have died because of devolution.
Yeah.
So when we see the milestones we have made as a country to where we are, where we have been able to devolve certain functions, then as a young person, I'm very happy that we are getting more resources back to the grassroots.
Right.
If you look at chapter 4, the fourth schedule of the Constitution of Kenya, they have been able to distribute certain functions to be performed by county governments. And the overlying principle is resources follow function.
Yes.
But over time, we have seen the national government holding onto functions that are meant to be performed by counties. Some of them are the issues of the classification of roads. The county government is still holding on to the county roads under a parastatal called KERA. We are seeing most of the functions under agriculture. They are still held by some parastatals at the Agricultural Ministry.
Okay.
We have the issues of water. We have so many issues that have been, many functions that are still pending that have not been unbundled to county governments. And because the principle is that resource follow function, then we are seeing many counties being starved of the resources that are supposed to perform functions that have already been devolved to counties.
Yeah.
So when I see this move of more resources going to counties, I don't have to celebrate because it is not a favor the national government is doing to the county governments. These are constitutional imperatives that have been put down by the drafters of the constitution in their wisdom. Secondly, if you look at Linda, what most counties are doing, the story of devolution has changed lives, but not to the extent to which many people expected devolution to do that.
Okay.
But at least there is a sort of relief that certain services are being able to be received at that local level. I wish most of the governors had robust programs to help our people, particularly women and youth, on issues of water and health, which are very critical functions that many people seek on a daily basis. You've talked about the issue of accountability. When the counties are doing budgeting, in the budgeting cycle, there is a requirement that they must engage what we call public participation. Mostly counties are developing what we call the County Integrated Development Plan. There is also the County Fiscal Strategy Papers. All these critical instruments that county governments are supposed to use to deploy the resources of the people must undergo public participation. But the kind of public participation we see at the county level, the quality is too low. You cannot be able to say that as many people as possible have participated in crafting the visions or the aspirations they have at the county level. So there is still need to improve on the success of a devolution story going forward, even in terms of ensuring that governors are not corrupt. We have only seen a few governors taken to court here and there, but most of them have been re-elected. Some of them are having active cases going on in court. So there is need to increase the accountability so that the resources that have been devolved to county level are spent well. And finally, Linda, there is something that is very disturbing when you look at the devolution story. The issue of, because the constitution talks about not less than 15% being able to be allocated to county governments on the basis of the last audited books of accounts. And I'm happy Mheshimiwa is here. Maybe he can be able to tell us which books of accounts that are being used to allocate the resources. We have seen the financial years that have been audited by Parliament to be way back when we should be having books of accounts that should be reasoned so that we have more resources going to counties. Yes.
And Mheshimiwa, you've had that question, and I mean, this is the biggest, or maybe the elephant in the room, especially even as we're talking about the BBI, because, well, we're talking about 15%, and we're talking of a BBI that speaks of more percentage to, proceed to the counties. But then, just how much has been put in terms of books and checks and balances to, first of all, ensure that this is happening right now, and, there's proper accountability of these funds, and, a move that would probably guarantee us, a probable success in this clause that has been incorporated in the BBI. As we close on this one.
One leader, I have what we call reservation in the current proposal in the BBI to devolve that 5% resources to county government. Cause me, what I would wish is that if we could be having a goodwill in leadership, it does not require to anchor such a clause in our constitution, because that means mandatory. This country may be in another stake like what we had undergone this particular last year in pandemic. What are you going to sustain the counties with if you are not collecting? If you are not attaining your goals, how do you attain to serve conditionalities in the constitution and their mandatory kind of proposals? In this particular case, I could urge that 15% which is projected in our constitution is not exactly what is being limited to these counties. We are extremely giving counties almost to that percent proposed. But me, I would wish the best formula is to use goodwill in the leadership of the central government, and that one leave a room of the economic performance to give. And the team of CLA to give the sharing formulas depending on how the economy has performed in that particular financial year.
Even with the existence of the current formulas, I would want to believe that goodwill.
With that leader, I also want to take a question that was fronted by my panelists, issue to do with what we call audited reports. It is not true that actually audited reports, we don't operate with the current. And you may find and try to say that it is Parliament which is making this backlog of audited reports. But I would say this depends on the hastiness of the work, the backlog given to the Auditor General. Because as long as the Auditor General presented his reports to the Parliament, they are prosecuted immediately, without delay. But you cannot prosecute something which has not tabled to the House. So if the Auditor General has issues that are throwing his or her work, I think that's an area that be addressed. If his kitty does not have enough to sustain his staffs, so that he can be able to push this work faster, I think it's an issue which can be had. And I've been a member of Budget Committee. Yes. So I know there are areas that the Auditor General has been always referring to get top-ups so that he can do more.
And indeed, that aspect at the Office of the Audit, yes?
And Linda, there's something Mheshimiwa said that I wanted to probe further. If you look at the work of the Auditor General, the Auditor General has been able to do their work timeously.
They've been giving...
The backlog has been at the Public Accounts Committee, not per se the whole House. I wouldn't put the blame on him. The Public Accounts Committee of Parliament is supposed to accelerate in clearing the backlog, especially the books of accounts, so that the allocation is based on the basis of the last audited accounts. It should be the most recent, not the financial years that are back, so that counties are being starved of resources. But more importantly, Linda, the economy in the beginning of last year was projected to grow at a rate of about 6.7%. But when corona pandemic hit us, Central Bank revised the figures downward to about 1.8%. It has been oscillating around there. Now it is standing at 3.2%. That is the slowest economic projections we have ever had as a country. In fact, even since independence, we have never seen such kind of figures. But something that is very disturbing to this country is the issue of public debt. And I think Joy mentioned that. Public debt is starving the country the resources we need to put into critical functions to take care, to deliver service to our people. In every shilling that is collected from the people, about 54 cents goes towards the repayment of debt. So the country is remaining with a paltry amount of about 47 cents per shilling.
And now that you brought that out.
What is the solution?
Yes.
We as a party, and I will wish to seek to lobby Mheshimiwa here, we have sponsored a motion, a bill called the Public Debt Management Authority Bill. It is at the first reading in Parliament. It has been sponsored by our member of the party called Honorable Sako Bunyasi. And I think at that stage, we will lobby Mheshimiwa to support that public debt management bill so that we are able to reduce the appetite and regulate the appetite on borrowing on the part of national government.
Right.
County governments themselves have the leeway in the constitution to borrow even externally, but the National Treasury is starving the county governments the authority, the latitude to be able to borrow to deliver certain functions. So
and now
I
that you brought that up, yeah, before
Yes.
we even close it, because, well, I know it's newspaper review, but sometimes when issues are intense, it is important that we delve deep into that. And Joy, coming to you, speaking of which, now that we're talking about the debt, there's been, coming into the year, a lot of reprieve in terms of the debt. And this reprieve, Makiu, is not a point where you're being told it's okay, we clear your debt, you're not going to pay it anymore. We're just saying that let's slow the payment rate because we understand the tough times that you've been going through that. I know, and we have received this with so much joy. Do you suppose it's a good thing, or eventually then it's going to bite back on us?
Kenyans are a society that loves debt.
Yes.
So we are those people who borrow from Tala to pay Fuliza, to borrow from Fuliza to pay Okash, from Okash to pay Branch.
You seem to know all of them. Wait a minute, Joy.
And this is part of how, even as a country, we've been playing Russian roulette with our debt. Now, what these debt holidays, breaks we've been given have done is they've taken the pressure off in terms of repayment. Now, remember, like when we started out with the SGR, we were also given that sort of holiday for the first few years to run the SGR so that we can generate some income to be able to pay it off comfortably. Right now, as we speak, even what we are servicing is not even the principal debt, it's the interest. And anybody who has taken these loans will tell you, if you get a tax break, if you take a restructuring, all it doesn't cancel it, it postpones it.
Yeah.
But even as it postpones it, unless there's a very specific clause to say that the interest is stayed, you keep attracting interest on what you borrowed and interest on the interest of what you have borrowed. So it is a good thing, because what it does, for right now, it buys us some time to breathe, to deal with what is urgent, because it's separating important from urgent. So this is important, but they say, you know what, with us guys, we can wait for our payments, feed your people first. So that, in that sense, we need to rejoice, because it has actually bought us some time. But that's why I go back to my earlier point. If the government doesn't use this opportunity to be very strategic and very frugal in how we plan our future engagements, especially financially, we'll get caught up with this again. And what that does is, in kicking this can down the road, we make this a problem that is actually bigger tomorrow than it is today. So this time that we have been given, where the Chinese have told us, you know what, let's back off a little bit, where the Paris Club has told us, you know what, let's back off a little bit. Now for us as Kenyans, it's not to say, hey, let's go out, let's have a party, let's have a good time. No.
Yeah.
This is the time to say, okay, where are those leakages? I was recently listening to the president, and he made a shocking admission that we are losing 2 billion shillings every day. And this is something that even the EACC has said, you know what, it's true. We are losing up to 1 trillion shillings of our budget to corruption. The war on graft has to be something that we back with all our might, because you can't be losing that amount of money and yet you need money in your pockets.
Right.
So this is an opportunity to start sealing those holes, to look for where we have leakage, to look for where we have wastage, to look for where there's actually theft, and just find a way of just putting ourselves in a better position that when the clock starts running again,
We're able to.
we are not caught up.
All right, well, the latest is here. I think it's part of the newspaper.
I think
Uhuru's new debt plan as China offers a breather. I think most of the people said, why is China not giving us, a breather? That is after we got that breather from the other side. And, well, finally, they decided that is what they're going to do. Mheshimiwa, as we close on this one, you wanted to say something.
Yes.
Make it brief.
Leader, I will just make it brief. Because what we need to look the bigger map and the bigger plan, the bigger roadmap of our country's growth. Because every country that succeeds in what we call development, it must be succeeding first in their planning.
Yeah.
Where we are missing our goals is during our planning stages. Because we have not we have not audited ourselves, and we have not audited our devolution after the position we are for the 7 good years. If you can look back to Kibaki's government, you realize very well Kibaki performed very well without any stress, economic stress. And the reason is simple. There was no those units of county government which were milking from the central government and maybe leaving the development kit empty. As we speak today, reader, do you know every single road we built in Kenya, a new one, and especially even this one, which is now the express road from the flyover, the CGR, every development is backed by borrowing. Have we asked ourselves such a question? Why are we taking this direction? Is it a mandatory route to go? Why are we forced to go this direction? The reason why our reserves are empty. Why is our reserves empty? Poor planning of our budget.
Okay.
Yes, we must get back to our planning in our budgeting so that at least we squeeze our budget in a manner that it will be able to accommodate.
When you were sitting at the budget committee, just what plays out in terms of setting up some of this, in terms of having these conversations of streamlining our budgets to a point where we can say now this is a good approach. We have allocated this on health, on education, and it's probably the most wise thing that we'd probably do.
One reader, you must understand that the budgets are made by the executive, and that is the position. The budget is made by the cabinet and the executive. And let me tell you,
but there's a point where you give advice.
No, the law is very clear that the budget should be a parliamentary process.
Okay.
But the parliamentary is just a rubber stamp to this.
Then we ask ourselves why. We ask ourselves why. All right, hold it right there, Mheshimiwa. Well, let's come back with this conversation after the break.
When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
Welcome back to the broadcast. Still on board, Joy Madivo joining us via Skype. We still have Mheshimiwa Gikuya and Nathaniel, as we expound some more on the conversation. And I guess this was newspaper review, but for a moment, I guess this has become the topic of discussion. Before we went for break, you wanted to challenge Mheshimiwa on what he was saying.
But I was
yes, all right. Okay, wind up, Mheshimiwa.
Yes, what I was saying, Linda, is that in fact we need to have to respect our institutions, because actually they were given. Actually, our institutions are given a mandate by the Constitution, and since it is constitutionalized, it is important to give our institutions independence they are given by the Constitution. This is one, the judiciary. We have been micromanaging the judiciary, which is very wrong. We have been micromanaging the parliament, which is very wrong. How can these two institutions work independently and give Kenyans results if they are micromanaged? Okay. I can tell you for sure what happened in the process of budget. I'd have been a member for long, but actually go and do some slight amendments, you will be whipped to the State House. So if that's this
is our representative speaking, the representative of the common.
I represent the people. I have to tell people the truth of the matter. Yes, and this is the position, and nobody can to challenge me
to make changes.
That is not what's happening. I am telling you, if you want to be brutalized, go amend any proposal by the executive.
What does it make you feel when you hear your representatives speak that way?
First of all,
as if they have already given up. So what is the common mwananchi expected to do?
I would wish to understand the sentiments of Mheshimiwa, but first of all, before I get there, there is a statement that was projected on the screen there regarding the breather that we have gotten in China. There is no breather we have gotten from China. In fact, the government does not have a plan on managing public debt, which is skyrocketing. The Treasury itself has admitted to having no plan. That's why ANC party has proposed the Public Debt Management Authority bill for the simple reason that if you have a project that is going to be implemented for a period of maybe 10 years or 10 years, you cannot borrow a loan that is going to be repaid in a period of 30 years. We must borrow based on the, something that is commensurate to the project value. That is what we are proposing in the Public Debt Management Authority bill as the ANC party. And I wish that at that stage, when we are going to seek the votes of members of parliament, that Mheshimiwa James Gakuya is going to support this bill so that we are able to regularize the appetite. And I hope at that time, Linda, he is not going to hold his hands and say, I have given up, that I'm not going to support this bill because
Mheshimiwa, you've seen this bill, right?
Yes, but my worry is, the proposal is so good for us.
Yes.
But my hard time is the implementation of the bill, because it will find the same forest.
Okay.
now Linda, the solution is simple. If the implementation is going to be a challenge, task. I am going to propose that the people of Kenya to vote an ANC government, because we are the authors of the bill, so that we go to government. But now there is something else that Mheshimiwa has mentioned, and I want to agree with him. There is poor planning in this country. We have gotten our priorities wrong.
Okay.
The simple logic is the national government cannot budget on functions that have been devolved. And he has mentioned here when we were having this chat on the sidelines, that health is 90% devolved. Yet the Ministry of Health is being allocated huge amounts of money. The only function that the Ministry of Health is allowed to perform is the function of national referrals and policy. But the Ministry of Health is still going to interfere with devolved health functions at the county. He has mentioned a very good project, the MES, the Managed Equipment project, that costed this country a lot of billions. That project was supposed to be managed by counties, but yet the national government budgeted on already devolved function. That is a major issue that we are having. The national government overstepping their mandate. Finally, Linda, there is something I would wish to say here that Mheshimiwa has put on record, which I disagree. The issue that Kibaki was able to perform because he did not have counties, that is not true. The fact that counties are there does not mean that the national government cannot be able to perform its functions correctly. It is an issue of planning, as he said.
Yes.
So the national government is getting its priorities wrong. So we need to make sure that going forward, we have a post-corona economic recovery plan. And this plan must include the issue of managing the public debt. And countries like China and US, particularly I'm focused on China. China must write off what we owe them and even pay us in
Is it so?
pay us more. Yes, they
Subject to
should write
conversation.
off and pay us more because this corona pandemic started from them.
Wow.
All
right, can we drop this conversation?
No, let me just write up.
Make it very brief, 30 seconds.
Very brief. This is Kibaki's regime. What I just want to prove to this panelists is that the performance of dealing with what we call, after harnessing the basket of resources, you will be able to distribute it very well to your well-planned project, and you can do mega projects with that money. But that money is once it is split into pieces, it cannot be able to step on a mega project in time in your economic planning. So that time, Kibaki could be able to build super highways with big proposals or big budget because the money is together. What we need to see is these counties where this money is being taken, doing these and therefore representing what the national government could have doing down there.
Accountability.
So that at least together we can see the country is growing. But you cannot say that the money is devolved and the money is not being doing anything down there.
Yes, well, accountability, we started with that. All right, we dropped that one. Disclaimer, you said that let's drop that one. And
China should pay. China should write off the loan. And Linda, I wrote about this last year in the Standard newspaper.
Yeah.
That because the pandemic started from them, and because China is a rich nation, currently China is the second largest economy in the world.
Yes.
They should have mercy. They should have the generosity as a country. That this pandemic started from us because of our lifestyle. Because it started from one.
Let's put a disclaimer.
They should just
on
write
that
off the loan and even pay us something in return to say, grow your economy with this.
Is that the direction we want to take? Sometimes we say, we need to pay for this because after all,
I'm not saying this because
what in case that particular pandemic emanated from Kenya?
That's the point. That's another thing. And speaking of the pandemic, gentlemen,
German has given China a bill to repay them. I don't know whether you've read
we've read that one. We've read that one. But then the question is, and they're not taking it lightly, so to speak. And so in this particular case, I don't know whether we have the stamina to have this conversation or even argue it that way and actually get that reprieve.
I wish you don't have dropped. We'll have the second time.
Joy, you want to come in, but we will not advance this conversation further. Let's talk of the pandemic, speaking of which, high stakes as experts discuss vaccine rollout. And it should be here any time from now. It's probably here. We're talking about priorities, who's going to get it. Do we give the politicians here so that if something is wrong, they are the ones to, should I say die first?
Me, I'm ready to be vaccinated as the fastest.
Yes, Joy.
It's one of those things that we have to understand that for us to move forward, the issue of the vaccine has to be discussed.
Yeah.
But I think I have said it here before and I will reiterate. I would that as Africans, we look for African solutions. For some reason, God has spared us the worst of corona. We shouldn't take that for granted. God has given us an opportunity where there's been a pandemic in the world, but if you look at the statistics and the fatalities around the world, for some reason, Africa has been spared.
Yeah.
Can we not try and find out where our benefit lies? Rather than mass vaccinate our people with something that has been developed for a different demographic. And I have been on record as saying our traditional medicine, our local doctors, our scientists here at KEMRI, we are able to come up with a vaccine that has been deliberated, discovered, investigated, and proven to be effective in our current environment, in our current climate, and with our people, compatible with the African people. Happy that there is something that is coming to give maybe our doctors a fighting chance. But where we are headed with this vast mass vaccination and all these other things that they've been talking about, for me, I'm thinking, you know what, in the West, it's a priority because they have very high fatalities. Yeah. But in Kenya, spare us, because when we see this, what we are seeing is, there'll be millions to import this, and that's another scandal loading. So I think Kenyans are a bit shell-shocked with COVID millionaires. We don't really need a part 2 of that program. Let's just stick with what we saw. Let that movie not have a sequel.
If the vaccine is here today and you're told, Palikwa Gate, there's a vaccine, Nathaniel, I can hear you nodding to what it is that Joy says, and I'm thinking you probably are in agreement with her sentiments. Would you not rush and run to get it?
First of all, I want to assert to agree with what Joy has mentioned. First of all, we African countries, we have been spared of this. And perhaps I will give answers to what Joy has asked. It is because we eat ugali, we eat yams, we eat, yes. You look at the levels of immunity among majorly youthful Africans. Africa is a youthful nation, and you know young people, they have immunity. This pandemic has only affected elderly people in Africa who have pre-existing medical conditions. Those are the people who have been adversely affected because of the issue of immunity. And I'm not saying the pandemic is not there. Corona is there. Yeah. We have seen the number of deaths that have happened, including most of our leaders. I lost my governor of Nyamira, the late John Nyagarama, to the pandemic. And this is something that we are sad about. It has affected our lives, not only economically, but we have also lost life. But the beauty about the pandemic, it has exposed the public healthcare system. Right. And that means that as a country, we must start making investments to strengthen and make the public healthcare system to be more strong to withstand future pandemics. Yes. So there is that benefit that is going to be drawn as part of the lessons when we are going to walk out of this pandemic. On the issue of vaccination, personally, I think we must engage our institutions. We have the research institutions. We cannot just start vaccinating our people, mass vaccination, when our experts have not told us whether it is necessary in the first place. Maybe this vaccine should be given to those people who are ailing. I don't think, because we have not seen, before the pandemic came here, I remember there was that first flight that came from China, the first that brought, most likely that brought the pandemic. We were fearing that what will happen to the people who are living in the slums. People don't have access to quality water. Right. Kibera, Madare, Mukuru Kwanjenga, all those informal settlements. We are worrying that we are going to have people dropping off the streets and die. Yeah. But we are not seeing that kind of scenario. So instead of doing mass vaccination, the government probably needs to seek the advice of experts. This is the time when the president needs to turn to our scientists and researchers and ask them, because Joy has been able to say, maybe this vaccine is not made for the demographic in Africa or Kenya. We need to do proper research and we need to rely on the advice of our experts. Yeah, the reason why this has been captured in the papers is because the health experts are converging today in Nairobi to deliberate on likely changes in getting the COVID-19 vaccines to the public. I mean, there has been a proposal to have the government distribute the vaccine to private health, facilities or providers freely, and the state is in a dilemma over the number of Kenyans that are supposed to be vaccinated, whether we're going to be able to sustain this, the balancing act on who gets it first, who doesn't get it, and importantly, how do we get to attain the public trust on this one? So generally, Mheshimiwa, you say you're ready. One is that we have been through with most bylaws which require vaccination. This one, it's like it has proved that the vaccination has something to do with prevention. Yeah. And as my panelist has suggested, I have no problem with our researchers and our Kemri and so on. It is a high time that they could have already done that. Because first and foremost, before you do order, you must have your team to do due diligence. Due diligence is part of the package on doing the normal test. You must be sure that what you are importing is usable. Yeah. Why do you do an order, import, pay, then you can't bring it like what you import in our camps here? But it's been a process where you can almost be sure that you're not going to get facts based on this, and so it's on a first come first served basis, and everyone is just trying to see whether this works in the first place. So can we really be radical when we are taking this approach? What I'm saying, I am sure that when the government initiate the order to import, already they have done their due diligence. And therefore, what they are importing, they are sure of. Yes, and they are sure of the product. And therefore, we cannot say that we shall first import, then we come. We now start to do the. No, if we are importing and bringing it here just to do test when it is already here, when the what about it's done otherwise. It tells us that huge amount of money is going to waste. So do your diligence first before you import. Then import when you are sure what you are importing for Kenyans is good
to digest.
Okay.
And I really
But
agree with Mheshimiwa on
Mheshimiwa,
that point.
let's put this in context.
Yes.
This is an illness in Kenya that has a 99% chance of recovery. That's the statistics that we have now.
Yeah.
And as Nathaniel has said, there have been some fatalities. I have friends who are currently admitted with COVID and others who suffered from COVID, but we also have other illnesses. This is a sickness that we have had in the world for about 2 years maximum. It's something that we know very little about. This is an illness where in our current environment, we have seen that the temperature weather, as well as our demographic, having a more youthful population and having a less toxic environment, has actually assisted us. This is a place where even the early BCG that we got when we were children has been shown to be maybe one of the factors why we have this protection.
Yeah.
I don't understand why in Kenya this is an urgency, because this vaccine there's that which they'll give you for free, yeah? That first one. But after that, you have to be buying this thing. I don't see why it is a priority for us right now, because if we come to a place where we are looking at what is killing our people, last year, over 4 times more people died from road traffic accidents than they died from COVID. Last year alone, over 5 times more people died from cancer than died from the COVID. So we have to come to a place where we put COVID where it belongs. In the pecking order of illnesses, where does it actually belong?
All right.
Because I think last year we all talked about so much COVID. We got to a place where we were living, thinking, breathing COVID. But in that same period, we lost so many more people to TB. Like I said, in 2018, we're looking at over 33,000 people who actually died from TB, which is transmitted in exactly the same way as COVID. What have we done in the meantime? What we have done is we have reaped the benefits of this hand washing and masking and social distancing, because those diseases that were coming because of our dirty hands, diarrhea, dysentery and such, those have gone down. So that is a positive.
Yeah.
Our Kenyans are now more mindful about coughing in public and things like that. That means some other respiratory diseases have also gone down. I would that, like you said, Mheshimiwa, our priorities, I would that we would build on those gains, and for COVID, just put it in context. And I think that's the place where I envy Tanzania. That yes, the disease is amongst them, but they've not allowed it to be a stumbling block. They've actually used it as a stepping stone to move on to the next agenda.
Well, they say that is debatable. That is debatable on whether indeed that was a good move, or is a good move even as it stands, or it wasn't a good move. And sometimes when you're dealing with
But so far, Rida, I think we have done what is very important for this country.
Yes.
Just to remove the stigma.
Right.
Because last year the stigma was too high.
It was too
Stigma
high.
was a big
Yes,
deal.
but as of now, people are very sure that this is not an outright killer disease. You can fight with it.
Yes, all right. But as we say that, sometimes people argue that maybe it's not in existence. And maybe that's why you started by justifying the fact that
the pandemic is there, the
Yes.
coronavirus is there. It's only that
Yeah,
it's
it's there.
affecting people with low immunity.
Right.
And secondly, Linda, there is something that I wanted to mention regarding the vaccine.
And make it brief.
We need to look at what the countries that have already received the vaccine.
Yeah.
Look at the US. They have already done mass vaccination to their population. But we need to monitor the results.
Yes.
Currently, the health department there in the United States is projecting that 100,000 more people are going to die in the next 1 month.
Yes.
What could be the reason?
The numbers hit around 400. Yesterday
they
they were having a memorial of the people who've lost their lives out of this.
Yet they have the vaccine. So we need to ask ourselves this question. If you look at UK, they have already bought many bottles of the vaccine. They have even done hoarding. They have in store millions of shots of the vaccine. So we need to look at what the other countries who have already done mass vaccination.
Yes.
What is the result? And more importantly, we need to look at what is happening in Kenya. Let's speak the reality. With the politicians, we are doing mass rallies. The other day you saw Raila was in Embakasi doing a mass rally. I think it was in the constituency of that area of Mheshimiwa. Ruto was also in Londiani doing these mass rallies. Our party, we were in Matungu. We had a mass rally for our candidate. And yet, amidst these mass rallies, with large gatherings, our people are not still dying. We are experiencing, the rate of infection is not that high. The question is why? And perhaps this is a time when the government needs to lessen the restriction. The president, the next time you are announcing this COVID-19 rules and regulation. Please move away from those restrictions because we are seeing the rallies.
This is in the interest of politics?
We are seeing these rallies. Why are we, the politicians, we are holding the rallies, but the matatu sector are told, don't crowd in the matatu.
And this one is
it is an irony. It is an irony. The president, and I want to appeal.
They are crowding the matatus.
The matatus are allowed to, are being told, don't crowd. The police,
they are crowding, unfortunately.
No, even the police. The police are getting hold of these matatus for breaking the COVID rules. Of crowding, yes. The police are, Mheshimiwa is here.
Is it that bad? Is it that bad?
It is that bad.
Yes.
So the president needs to speak to the reality the next time he is issuing these COVID rules. He should lessen the restrictions because we, the politicians, we have already broken those rules by doing this mass rally.
Time.
So
I don't know why action is not taken on you.
I want to defend the public in this regard.
I agree with you. Even curfews has to come to an end.
Yes.
Because you cannot tell me that rocket science, which tells us that in fact from 10 p.m. to down is that those 4 hours are the only effective hours to infect the masses. That is the time when every Kenyan is asleep, and that is when the spread of virus is very low. And therefore, I urge the president consider those actually who works during those night hours.
Actually, it is curtailing the economy. If you look at the entertainment sector, most bars are closed.
In fact, they are crying foul.
Many young people, I can speak on behalf of young people here. Many young people are working as waiters, waitresses in bars and other entertainment joints. They have lost their jobs. Many young people are looking for jobs. They are seeking out for jobs. These are the source of their livelihoods. The president should open up the country fully because we, the politicians, have already broken these rules.
And speaking of which, I think now we drop this one and we get to the actual subject of the day. We have about 35 minutes or so to speak on this. And it's about the hunter being the hunted. That is on Matters Politics and the shots that have been fired to the DP. And well, coming from ANC, I don't know whether there was a meeting that was set and unanimously agreed upon that it is time now that we fire shots on this person until we put him down. We'll get to learn that as we proceed. Speaking of, the key stories that have been captured on Matters Politics, Raila rallies troops to counter anti-BBI wave at grassroots. And every time he goes there, there's the mention of the DP and how he's curtailing this move of the BBI and how he's curtailing progress at the level of the government. Raila himself actually distancing himself from, what has been happening within the Jubilee government, saying that, your failures are your failures as a government. The DP says, if you're part and parcel of us, if you're working with us, then you should be part of these failures and we should chart the way forward on making some of these changes. That is on the People Daily. That is the key political story. And another political story that is on the Daily Nation, cornered Uhuru's surprise demand on Raila. All this in regards to the BBI and much, much more. And when we see Bensouda, we also think about the DP, unfortunately or fortunately, based on the cases that are happening at The Hague. And getting us to the the Standard newspaper, another key story, Ruto's moment of reckoning. Yes, it is Ruto's moment of reckoning, taking us back to the People Daily. Ngilu tells of Ruto overheated Kalonzo land grabbing claims. We've seen what Kalonzo has told Ruto. I don't even know whether we have that clip. Do we have that clip, Madam Director, so we can play, so at least it can kickstart the conversation for us? Do we have the clips? All right, as we're trying to copy that, yes, I would want to assume that the panelists have probably had a chance to listen to what Ngilu said, had a chance to listen to what Kalonzo Musyoka had to say. We have it ready. Let's listen into that and then we come back to the discussion.
I wanted also to talk about the attack that was pushed towards Kalonzo Musyoka yesterday by one Ruto, Deputy President of this country, about the Yatta land that I can say here Kalonzo owns it, and he acquired it very regularly and very legally. As a former Minister of Lands, I checked the details of that land, and I found that actually Kalonzo had acquired that land very well. So I would like to tell Deputy President Ruto to stop thinking that somebody of Kalonzo's stature and standing can do the kind of things he himself does when he sees any empty piece of land anywhere. And to say that they are...
All right, that is that bit in defense of Kalonzo. If you listen to that clip further, then she speaks of Ruto, who's probably what it is that Kalonzo said is Arab Mashamba, one of the key people that we should be worried about when it comes to the aspect of corruption. Just to pick it up from this, before we even delve deep into the conversation, Joy, is it a scenario where an accomplice or a person who was privy to this information, decided not to speak about the crime that they had knowledge about back then when it was really necessary and important for us, and now they're coming out to speak about it when it is too late?
When I heard Mheshimiwa Ngilu speaking, it reminded me of when we were children and my sister and I would fight like cats and dogs.
Yes.
But if somebody tried to attack one of us, then the other one would come to his defense,
in defense
hammer and tongs. And that's what that was the first thing that came to mind, because I was like, Honorable Kalonzo and Honorable Ngilu, in terms of local politics, are rivals. They don't really see eye to eye.
Yes.
But this time when there was a perceived threat to one of them, one of the fiercest defenders became Honorable Charity Ngilu. And like you said, by her own admission, because she was in the ministry, when she starts confirming to us that indeed there is, it was actually a properly acquired title, it's not lost on one that, Honorable Charity left her ministerial position under a cloud of corruption. So in terms of a character reference, should not be the strongest reference. And I'm on record as having said, sometimes when I hear the politicians pointing fingers in terms of corruption, it's the pot calling the kettle black. Many of them, if we actually just did a little homework and laid bare what we discovered, we would find that they have one or two things that were indiscretions, so to speak. But I also found it very interesting that Honorable Ruto felt that he had the moral authority to talk to Honorable Kalonzo about it. So that for me is what we call bare-knuckle politics, where you decide, as the young people say, katambe. It's gotten to a place where let it go. Let's kufa gari kufa dereva. And that's what came across. It's reached a time in politics where, like you said, everybody wants to fire the DP, and he is coming out also guns blazing. There's a time when he was making some form of diplomacy and trying to be, humble about things. But what we have seen this year is that DP has reached a place where he's taking no prisoners. He's come out like the guy in the movie with both guns are removed from the holster. And is ready to take on anyone. What that also tells me is that also we've come to the place where in politics it's mkondo alala salam. Everybody knows that next year there is going to be an election. And that's why I think it was Honorable Naisula who tweeted and said, is it a transfer window for us politicians? This is when people are coming up with alignments. And I think we've gotten to a place where people have started choosing who they are backing up, and now it's no longer a secret. The people who, up to this point, are trying to be neutral, to be everybody's friend, but it has come to a place where you need to pick your friends, you need to pick your enemies, and you need to take your sides. But be that as it may, on the topic at hand, we cannot be defending something that is indefensible. Land grabbing by whomever it is done is indefensible. If there is an allegation, let us come out to allay the fears rather than to have mere denials. Because you can imagine the people who are living in Yatta and were probably on that land. We need to just find out, by the way, how are they doing? Is this something that they actually support or they do not support? But as Honorable Ngilu also said, the DP also has questions to answer in this court. So let's get to a place where we don't allow our politicians to get away with statements willy-nilly. Let's put them to task. Let them.
But just how is that possible? How is that possible? If, for instance, we would take the case of the DP. I mean, for how long have we been talking about the issues of land? And we always say constitutionally, you can only confidently point a finger and say that, step out, or this is grave, this has gotten to a worse point. At that point where he is declared guilty, but he's not been, declared guilty in court of law. So in this case, would we say it is just shenanigans that are played about, in terms of politics, and we probably are not surprised with this?
Linda, the Deputy President has been found guilty being culpable of land.
He's working
grabbing.
scot-free, so we cannot declare that.
I
with
can give you
confidence.
a case. The court found him guilty for having acquired illegally the land belonging to an IDP called Muteshi.
Muteshi, yeah.
That is one example, and he was asked to pay a fine.
Which
so we have reference to make to these issues, but I'm not saying that
just because it happened once, it's a guarantee that there's another one that.
The point is, when I see the two leaders, especially as a young person representing the aspirations of many young people, when I see the Kalonzo and the deputy president trading verbs on the issue of land,
yes,
I feel so bad about the future of this country, because land in the past has been a tool of political mobilization. If you look at the issues in the coast, mainly has been the issue of land,
yes,
land dispossession of the locals, the real owners of the land in the coast region and many parts of this country. Have been people have come to grab their land. So land dispossession has been a major issue in this country. So it has sort of become a tool of political mobilization. Secondly, land is a primary factor of production. If we cannot have sufficient land, then we cannot have a good economy that we are talking about. So I see a total degeneration in the system of governance in this country. Because if Ngilu is coming to support Kalonzo,
yes,
just because they come from the same region and she wants to play local politics and be politically correct, I feel sad for this country. Then the need that the things we need to do as a country is to go back to what has been done in the past.
Yeah.
We have formed a commission of inquiry before to look into the issues of land. It's called the Ndungu Land Commission. That report is lying idle in the shelves.
Right.
I will wish Mheshimiwa James, if he was courageous enough, to start demanding these things from Parliament, seeking a statement from the Minister of Land and even the Presidency, that what are we doing with the report that was a public process, that was publicly funded. What happened to that report? What happened to the reports of the TJRC, the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report?
And I mean, let's ask him that immediately.
Predominantly on the issues of land and historical marginalization of this country. When we go down the memory lane is when we can be able to get the real owners of this conversation that we are seeing the Deputy President and Kalonzo trading buffs. But far beyond that, Linda, there is an issue with the land question in the Republic of Kenya.
And yes, before we get to that, before we even get to the aspect of the DP, I think it's important that we have Mheshimiwa address that one or speak about that one. And John Rongo at some point in time speaks of, a scenario that played out back then. And so most of the Kenyans will tell you that we have issues when it comes to the injustices that have been meted upon us, especially in regards to matters land. John Rongo says, my family of Mau Mau warriors was forcefully evicted from Kiambu to Lamu immediately after independence. Please highlight the plight of Kikuyus who were evicted after independence to less fertile lands. And every time we're talking matters land, and I think you were here the other time with PMG, it was really emotive. At some point in time, you can see how bitter people are when it comes to talking about land. And up until today, we still do not have answers to that. And when shots are being fired, it appears as though it's a political tool. But in real sense, these are issues that are underlying and they need to be addressed. How best can we address this?
One thing, Rinda, is that it will be too difficult for the sitting government to compensate all these injustices. Most of these injustices probably were done by individuals. It will require a lot of goodwill to at least deal with the recommendations of the reports which are already done investigations and has made recommendations. I agree with my panelists that in fact, like the Dongo report and the rest of the reports that are pending in the House are supposed to be public and prosecute, and at least at this particular time and point, they are supposed to have totally prosecuted and at least action taken. But whenever you find this kind of slow piece, it shows you that actually there is a lot of interest. And at least they are being held there because at least there is what we call a parliamentary business committee. And that business committee will totally lock you from accessing or from those bills seek the right of the floor. And I can tell you for sure, the parliament operates as any other law court, any other judicial court. When that committee rules it out and the speaker rules it out, then you have not much to do. Unless then you appeal outside, where you must move to the court of law to challenge such kind of process. Because the speaker rules, that's the end of it. That you can do your appeal to the speaker, and that's the end of it. Once he makes his ruling, the House has made an election. Let me say, for such insincere challenges that actually have taken this country right before independence and after, I am sure that a willing government can do something. And what the government can do is maybe those who did not attain enough after fighting for independence. Maybe last time we found the UK government doing something, but at least the local government also should consider to do something on the same. And I think the best thing to do, the government should consider all these, put in table, then move to a budget, then look for a particular budget, either they value those elements. If they value the element in the magnitude of maybe 200 billion compensation, let us put that money in a particular budget of a year, or split it in a tune of 3 or 4 years. Then we pay in installments, and we clear these backlogs. Because at the end of the day, most of the people will die without have seen their justice, and it is very unfortunate that one was evicted to his house, to his particular land, which he really owned legally, but actually he has no room to get back there. And maybe forces of money and forces of those mighty cannot allow him get step back. Even we have the last concluded issues of 2007, 2008 crashes. Yes. I also believe that those people who were evicted from their RADs have a right to sell back to sell their RAD, because that was their property and that was their asset. The fear that made those people not to get back to where they were does not mean it's a certificate to block them from accessing or getting selling of their property. Then you pack and go. Yes, because that was illegally somebody's asset and property, and the sitting government has a legitimate mandate by the Constitution to protect the people and their properties. Which
probably they have not done so well. But as we drop that one and to the political situation in the country, the DP's hustler narrative has really gained momentum. The DP himself enjoys so much support, at least evidently from what we see today. And some of these supporters sort of feel like, you know, he is being targeted just because he has gone out there and has been able to whip the masses to his camp. Joy, if we are to look at these narratives that are being coined right now at a time where we are in a heated political season, of what implications, one, would they be to the DP himself and his quest for 2022, and of what implications would it be for his supporters and generally the stability of the nation? I know, being alive to the fact that indeed land is an emotive issue, and corruption equally is one thing that we've really, you know, longed to deal with.
Now, one of the things that the government is doing is that we are currently in the process of, for lack of a better word, let me use a pedestrian term, renumbering our titles and sort of putting them in an electronic format. What this is going to do is that it's going to make it easier and faster to track which titles are genuine and who are the holders. So like, for example, now if you try to do a search for a car, or if you're trying to register a company or to do a search for a company, go on your eCitizen and within minutes you have the information that you need. So what we have had, the perennial confusion at the Lands Office, is going to be dealt with once we are able to get everything electronically tracked down. Secondly, titles that are not genuine will also now be exposed because they will not be found on that online portal. Thirdly, we'll be able to ascertain the truth and the fiction because, like I said earlier, there are times we've had allegations being made, but there's no substantiation. So at the end of the day, I think it is Nathaniel who said it's used more like a political tool rather than a fact of life. So for example, what Honorable Ngilu was saying, should have been able to just refer us, a simple search should have been able to reveal whether or not what she is saying and what Honorable Kalonzo is saying is true, or whether it is character assassination. But now coming to what you're talking about with the DP and the Hustler Nation narrative, one of the things that you need to appreciate is that what the DP has been successful in doing is in cutting across tribal lines to have a certain caliber of Kenyans identify as one. And that's why they call themselves a nation.
Yeah.
And what this has done, therefore, it has given an awakening and an awareness to, like, it's like what we saw in the United States, where you had these guys who are doing blue-collar jobs, felt that they were never participating in public life. And then along comes Donald Trump and he's talking their language, and they all galvanize against around him. Now, that is something like what you're saying with the Hustler Nation now. The trick now is in ensuring that that particular narrative does not end up in a class war. And I think that's the tragedy we're seeing last week, where somebody's car was burnt down. Because if it degenerates into a class war, then it is something that is harmful to our society. You've talked about the post-election violence. It came about because of that cutting across of you people on this side, we're on this side, and please don't cross over. And if you're here, we're going to get you out. We cannot have that situation in this country. And I think that's why we need to have a conversation about, even if we're doing politics, how do we keep the politics now in a way that it empowers the people, but it does not pit Kenyan against Kenyan, tribe against tribe.
Yeah.
And be that as it may, we also coming into a season where Kenyans are becoming more ideologically aware. There was a time when you could mesmerize Kenyans with promises of roads and things like that. But people have realized, you know what, with the evolution, and even with just living a little longer, I mean, tarmac now is not a big thing. It's not something you're going to tell Kenyans, I'll bring tarmac, and they're so impressed by you. They have come to expect that their roads should be tarmacked. They have moved beyond from those days when it was such a big deal that would cause you to clap for your mheshimiwa. And so we have to come to a point in our politics where we become a little bit more sophisticated. So, for example, our country has been very big on mega projects. Like Mheshimiwa said, we have done very good mega projects. We need to come to a place where people understand how having this major road passing through our community translates into money into my pocket. If Kenyans don't make that connection, then they're not impressed by what they're seeing in their macro, in the macroeconomics. In the region, yes, we are a powerhouse. We are a $100 million economy. We are actually doing very well. But as long as Kenyans are not feeling the translation to their pockets, then it influences their politics. And so there is that need to help Kenyans understand. This is where we are going as a country. This is how it translates to the common mwananchi. And even if we're talking of ourselves as hustlers, let us understand how the hustle builds to the whole.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it ends up then just being yet another, it's like tribalism. It's just another divisive factor. That has to change, because as a country, we cannot afford another situation where we're getting to an election with an us versus them. It will degenerate very quickly.
How can we look at what it is that ANC is speaking about, what it is that Wiper is speaking about, what it is that ODM is speaking about, what it is that Jubilee is speaking about, and the likes of all these other parties that we have, as a move or as a way of trying to address the issues that we have as a people, issues that are going to be instrumental in terms of transforming the nation, so that we can get to that aspect where Joy speaks of sophistication of understanding the political situation, for instance. And we still are on the DP. Looks like he's being hunted. Like Joy says, it's probably character assassination. How can we look at what it is that ANC proposes in terms of impeaching the DP and just making changes in the country as a good move towards bringing transformation? Is it fear that this person has really gained momentum and then he's going to be a stumbling block, in our bid to getting to presidency?
First of all, Linda, I can speak authoritatively about ANC party because I work in the party.
Yes.
Now, ANC party is the last party standing in the struggles of the people.
Is it so?
Yes. If you look at all these other parties they have mentioned, ODM, CCM, KANU, Wiper.
Is NASA still there?
We were the founders of NASA,
yes,
and we had a vision as the ANC party that we want to take our people to Canaan to eat milk and honey.
Then what happened?
But there was betrayal at River Jordan. You know what ODM did,
and then you still are under the outfit or what?
Now NASA is legally there on paper, but politically it is a dysfunctional movement. But we have not lost that, because we were the vision bearers of the NASA dream. And because we are the last party standing in the struggles and the hopes of the people right now, we are the only political party that has not joined Jubilee. Mheshimiwa Izia can confirm.
Have you not joined Jubilee?
We have not joined
It is
Jubilee.
interesting to see how you're working together. And I mean, Wiper will tell you they have not joined Jubilee in any way.
I'll explain to you. Mheshimiwa Izia can back me up. If you look at Wiper, CCM, ODM, all those parties, KANU, they have joined the Jubilee coalition.
CCM is in Tanga today. Because now we're talking about the leaders, yeah?
That's the leader.
We're technically talking about the leaders, yes.
The last time I checked,
there was an agreement.
There was a function at the Jubilee Party headquarters where CCM, Wiper, and KANU, they signed a cooperation agreement, technically joining Jubilee. That was, they are now called a Jubilee coalition. And ODM is working with Jubilee Party
automatically
in the handshake. ANC Party is the only party that has not betrayed the struggles of the people because of the NASA dream that we carry.
Do you suppose the leader carries the same, your leader?
Our party leader, yes, he carries the aspiration. Just because we are supporting BBI, and there is no other political party that is opposing BBI other than Martha Karua and the likes. We are only supporting BBI, and we supported BBI after our request and our demands were met.
Incorporated.
Now, let me come back to what is happening. The Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya should be accused of plagiarism.
Before you get to that point, if your demands or your expectations of what you needed were incorporated in the BBI, do you suppose it was unfair that the demands that were fronted by the likes of Tanga, the DP allies, were not incorporated? Was it unfair?
Because this was a public process, and we have seen our party leader, he has been consulting the critical party organs. His Excellency Musalia Mudavadi has always been open and candid with us. Before he went to State House to sign the BBI process, that we are going to do civic education to educate our people on this, we consulted internally in the critical organs of the party. And we sent him severally during the Bomas 1, Bomas 2, to air the issues of the people and the issues of the party. And he saw Musalia Mudavadi is the only man who could stand out during Bomas and say, yes, we are talking about these things, but what about the private sector? And you can confidently say that
the document has so much that is good for the people?
Now, initially, there are issues we had with the BBI. For example, the erosion that was going to happen in the independence of constitutional commissions and the judiciary in particular by the creation of a judiciary ombudsman who was going to be a prefect of the judiciary. We raised that. Musalia Mudavadi raised that at Bomas. We also raised the issue of strengthening the Senate, if you remember what he said in Bomas. That you cannot say that we cannot take women to the Senate and then remove the power of resource allocation from the Senate, particularly the vertical allocation of resources. So, and among many other issues.
Close to the issues that the DP was
out of the 15 issues that we identified as a party.
How many were picked?
All of them were considered by the BBI steering committee. And they were incorporated because they were for the good of the people and they made a lot of sense.
Was it not a bait to get you to this other side?
I don't know whether it was fair or not because they must put their case forward. They must put their case forward. As we are defending what we think is best for this country. And now, Linda, let me take you back a little bit. The Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, William Ruto, should be accused of plagiarism in our party. He has copy-pasted the manifesto of ANC Party.
Really?
Yes, he has. If you look at ANC Party, we have a manifesto called Uchumi Bora Manifesto. The Uchumi Bora Manifesto speaks into the issues of Mama Mboga, Mkokoteni, Boda Boda, all those issues that the Deputy President
Is there someone within you that works with him that gets him to do all this?
Last year, the Deputy President stole our former Secretary General.
How many times? Barak Muluka comes here, but he says that wasn't the case. In his own sane mind.
Let me explain.
Yes.
The Deputy President has started talking about the Hustler Nation the moment he stole our Secretary General, the former Barak Muluka. The moment Barak Muluka switched, and remember, Barak Muluka was instrumental in the remaking of the ANC's Uchumi Bora Manifesto. So Barak Muluka ran away with the ANC manifesto of Uchumi Bora and took it to the Deputy President.
Barak Muluka was here on Monday.
And
he would not agree to.
That is the time the Deputy President has started talking about the issues of Mkokoteni.
Do you know how many times we've been told that probably our constitution, our very own constitution, is a copy-paste? Should we be accused of
because ANC, we are an authority. We innovate things. We innovated the NASA dream.
So who is to push for this, plagiarism accusation and all that?
I'm just saying here because the things that had in the ANC manifesto, the Uchumi Bora manifesto of ANC, are the things the Deputy President is talking about.
Is that the reason why you feel like he should be impeached?
No, I'm coming to that.
Okay.
Now,
Make it brief.
Let me summarize this way. Linda, the Deputy President and the entire Jubilee administration, and unfortunately, Mheshimiwa belongs to that administration. They had a manifesto. 2013, they had a Jubilee manifesto. 2017, they had a re-election manifesto. There are certain things they promised Kenyans. One of them was a double-digit economy. They promised to create 1.2 million jobs a year. They promised, there were how many stadiums? There were 5 stadiums initially, now they went to 9. Most of those promises they made to the Kenyan people. And I remember the Deputy President was a fierce advocate of saying, tumetenga hii, tumetenga ile pale. He is the person who was at the forefront in saying that we in the NASA side, we don't have a plan, we don't have a manifesto, we don't have a candidate. I don't know whether you remember that.
I remember. So in that case, do you suppose this is the basis?
He is the same person. We must hold him accountable to the promises they made. He is the same person who said in 2013 that Siasa 2013 then was analog versus digital. And he wanted the country to move to a digital economy. But right now is the same person who is saying, let us go back to the wheelbarrow, which is an analog
He was working, in tandem with the president.
No,
is it then hypocritical
I am accusing the entire Jubilee administration because the manifesto belongs to the Jubilee government. Whether they are divided or not, that is not our issue. That is
why speak of impeaching the DP?
Now, on the part of impeaching the Deputy President, any member of parliament, including Mheshimiwa James Gakuya,
can raise that.
He is entitled.
Yes.
He can be able to bring a motion of impeachment and back it up with grounds and convince his colleagues to support that motion and substantiate with facts.
All right.
So as a party, we have seen one member of the ANC party called Mheshimiwa Ayub Savula.
Yes.
He has come forth and he has said that he wants to process a motion of impeachment.
And you support that as a party.
So I am waiting for him to, I'm waiting from him to see the grounds that he has against impeaching the Deputy President. And once we have seen the grounds, we will process that at the party level.
Okay.
If the grounds are sufficient, then we are going to see whether to mobilize the numbers. But as an individual member of parliament, he is entitled to including Mheshimiwa here. He is a member of parliament.
Honorable Gakuya.
I hope you are going to give me my
we only have about 5 minutes all right. I was expecting you to interject, but you...
No,
okay.
I really wanted to
get him
to exhaust himself.
All right.
Yeah, so that at least I can get to know the bottom of his grant. Now that the issue to do with the Deputy President is on the table, I want to be very clear in this, and very categorical. Let us not pass the blame to Deputy President. Deputy President has not committed any crime in this country. I was looking at the head of state when he was addressing the Mount Kenya, and I was, yes, what is this? Because what the president was trying to tell Mount Kenya is that his deputy is like interfering with his programs in terms of development. But my big question with Crick is this, that today, in the headlines here, we have seen Raila Amolo Odinga telling Kenyans that he's now busy into the public popularizing the BBI. And I am asking myself a question. Is a BBI reggae not politics? Are you not dealing with the public when you are popularizing BBI? Is that not really hurting your economic growth if Ruto is his meetings are hurting development growth?
Okay.
So I was wondering, are we living in two Kenya? Because there has not to be a Kenya for Raila and a Kenya for Deputy President.
Do you think that was unfair, looking at the political events
I
that
can tell you for sure, if the president,
DP has been performing...
If the president want to be very neutral, he must play very neutral politics. And he must not be seen by any Kenyan or any person.
Working in the same government, the DP says, I'm not going to, now that they have not incorporated what I fronted in the BBI, I guess I'll focus on this side on development. I'll allow them to push the BBI. Is that not frustrating the interest of the president? When
One thing, leader, let us also do politics and argue as people living in this country and not people living in this place. And we remember very well that the head of the deputy president, most of his powers, because actually he enjoys powers delegated by the president or jobs delegated by the president. It is the president to make his deputy busy. It's not the other way around.
So you feel like
the
he's not being made
Constitution is
busy?
very clear
He is not being made
that
busy?
the deputy president has no role. His role is to get into duties delegated by the head of
Which
state.
the head of state is not doing as of now?
I can tell you the works that the deputy was delegated to were already taken to somebody else,
Yes.
and we created another somebody by the name Chief Minister who takes over.
Would it be unfair then for people to push him to resign?
The people can push if they feel he's not
Or
doing.
maybe suggest.
Yeah.
Suggest, because he feels like, well, after all, there's nothing I'm doing within the government.
I can tell you for sure, our constitution outlined very well the duties of deputies, including the deputy governors. They are rendered to just fridge in their offices.
Okay.
And you have seen cases like Kiambu, where Deputy Nyoro was always in war with Tito. You have seen it with many other counties. That is the case. And can I ask you a question? How many deputy governors do you know? They don't speak.
Is that a polite way of saying that we probably do not even need them in the first place?
Can I say I just take a sample of one county, the county of Muranga. Have you ever heard of a deputy governor?
You probably have never
Do
heard.
you even know his name?
Is that to say then we don't need this office?
I can tell you, those I can call the bosses, the big bosses, must not infringe their deputies. They must also leave their deputies to breathe, because they are also political and they are in political offices. But don't just grab everything and leave your deputy
Hold it right there, Mahesh, and I'm coming back to you because I know you need more time for that. Joy, is that politely saying that we probably do not even need this office? You know, when Sonko managed to run Nairobi in whatever way he managed it without a deputy, it got us to that point where we started asking ourselves, do we really need a deputy governor? Do we need, well, a deputy president, if at all they do not have a clear-cut line of functions, you know, enshrined in the Constitution, and what the president has probably done from what they say with an executive order, you know, taking some of these functions to a different individual, and then this clique by the deputy president sort of feel like, you know, the deputy president is just there. Do we genuinely need this particular office? Should we start having a conversation of how we root it out?
In the royal families, when a princess is married by a prince, one of the things they always encourage the couple is to have an heir and a spare.
Yeah.
So you give birth to the next king or queen and make sure that you've got one other child, that if something happens to the heir, we have a spare. Mm-hmm. And that's the context within which we have deputies in our constitution, and not vice, mm-hmm. as used to have before. Mm-hmm. So a vice president could not work substantively as the president because they were a vice president. But a deputy has got a higher responsibility because in the absence of the president, then they have enough authority to act as if they were the substantive office holder.
Can the speakers do that?
No, that is why we have deputies.
Okay.
The big idea is to ensure that in the event that there is a vacancy in the office of the substantive office holder, then automatically you've got somebody who has been working together with the substantive office holder to be able to pass the baton. The problem we have in Kenya, I think, is a problem of insecure leadership, mm-hmm. where the substantive office holders, like the example Mheshimiwa gave of Waititu and Honorable Nyoro,
yes.
is that you get to a place where you don't trust your deputy. You think that they are going to upstage you. What that does is that you end up in a situation like what we see in Pokot, where you choose a deputy who is such a wallflower that even if they go off to America and stay there for 6 months, nobody feels the gap. And that is wrong. What we need to have in this country, I think, is use some of these offices as an understudy, as a succession matrix. Why am I saying that? If you look at a country like Tanzania, CCM has been the only party in power ever since they got independence. But within the party, they have worked it such that the one who is currently in power is always training the next one, and when time comes, they move on, and they keep getting fresh faces coming into the same space. Contrast that with what we are seeing, for example, in Uganda, where you've had the same party in power, but you've also had the same person in power. In Kenya, with our system where we have term limits and we've got the office of a deputy, this is a chance for young people to be mentored, to be able to take over leadership. Okay. It's also a chance for fresh leaders to be showcased. So like even Mheshimiwa is saying, why should we not know who your deputy governor is? And remember, there was even an accusation of some deputy governors getting into depression and into alcoholism because of the frustration of having an office without any functions. And that's part of what BBI was even trying to cure, is to actually define some of these roles more clearly. But now if we bring it to the person of the deputy president, unlike a deputy governor who may feel beholden to the governor, the deputy president in and of himself was a party leader. He actually had an active role in forming Jubilee as a party. And so he's not the type of person who will sit and wait for you to allocate roles. That's why even when his official roles have been taken away, you see him crafting his own other agenda, inviting people to Karen, deciding that he's still going to run around and do politics. And he's unfazed, because in and of himself, he has the capacity to do this without the president. And I think that's why his dynamic is so different from a deputy governor. But like you said, why do we need these people here? The primary reason why we involved the office of a deputy was to ensure in the event that, for example, what happened to Honorable Laboso, the substantive office holder exits the stage, there is no gap. All you do is have the deputy step in. And that's what we've attempted to also do in Nairobi. Albeit in a bit convoluted manner, but we tried to get our deputy to try and step in, even when they're not been put in place in the right time.
All right, let's bring it back to Honorable Gakuya. We have about 1 minute to step out of the set. Well, if we were to look at all these scenarios, and you know, Joy brought a scenario of what is happening in Tanzania and Uganda, and you find that some of these deputies are not even known. And that is the reality of the matter. Why is it that there is so much desire for this one of ours to go out there and be known and be felt? And you know, on instances you've heard them tell him, you know what, remember the Jaramogi scenario, remember the Moi scenario and how calm he was when, you know, Kenyatta was there. I mean, why is it that there's so much bile?
Can I tell you, Rita? I told you, in the first I told you that me and you, we live here.
Yes.
We don't live in this place. So we know the genesis. And just look how the deputy president and his and the president, as a unit, as a team, came to power. And can you just even click back, see how these guys were marching, even in their wearing tie, they were matching tie, shirts, and everything. So they are like, actually, they were like, it is not the president and deputy. It was almost like one unit. They were co-share.
Yes. Co-presidents.
Yeah, they are co-presidents. And that was it.
Is that where the problem is?
And let me tell you for sure. In fact, even in your house, when your husband gives you a freedom to do what pertains, even when he is absent, then that just
no, you know what the Constitution says.
Let me see. Let me finish. Just get to know that, in fact, it is that partnership which is giving that goodwill.
You see, that is on an individual basis, and maybe that's why today we talk of kumi yako, kumi yangu, and someone says, you know what, it is not.
But actually, leader, let us be sincere people. Let us not be people of betrayal. Remember, leader, once you have a lander, I allow you to climb on it. Just don't throw it once you get there. Because you may need this ladder when coming back.
Down.
Yes, don't even bang your door when you are getting out. Because you may need this door when
the president
back.
Is burning bridges.
Let me tell you, the head of state should not burn Ruto's bridges at this point. Because Ruto, at the time of need, when the president has no any thread behind, actually this fellow stood with him.
But the president needs him now so that he's able to get development to the people.
Can I finish?
Yes.
Can I finish?
Okay, finish.
Yes.
All right.
The bridges and the rain start popping on lands on the Jubilee immediately after hardship.
Is it so?
There before, these people were twinned. And actually
there was still a problem in
I can tell you, let me tell you, the whole 5 years, there were no issues in Jubilee. And if there were issues, the president could not take his deputy.
We'll go back to history.
He could not have taken his deputy another term that is when the marriage could have died.
Well, there was a problem. I mean, they said immediately after 2017, the DP went on the roads to start, campaigning. And the president was complaining about, well, at some point in time, he said, well, he's my errand boy, so when you see him around. But, it sounded like it wasn't genuine. At this point, maybe the handshake was not in existence. So it would be unfair to even argue that, before the handshake, everything was all good in Jubilee Party. I remember on numerous occasions, I was still hosting a show. We kept saying that, Jubilee needs to put its house in order.
Linda, Kenya is hurting. The economy is not good. It's doing well. Many people are looking for jobs and opportunities, particularly young people and women.
Yeah.
As leaders, from whichever political party or from whichever level, we need to fight and root for our people. We need to make sure that the economy is working so that we can be able to expand opportunities to millions of Kenyans. Really, that is the problem. That is the challenge we have as leaders. Whether the president betrayed the deputy or not, whether Raila Odinga betrayed Musalia Mudavadi and the NASA dream like he did at River Jordan or not, that is not here nor there. We should not even be talking about whether the deputy president is busy or not. We want to see a government that is working. And I want to promise you, Linda, that, and our viewers who are listening to us, that we need to put a responsible government in place in 2022 to handle the economy, particularly post-corona. If we don't do that, then Kenya is doomed. And I dare suggest that it is only ANC government.
Please don't even go there. That is what you want to say. That it is ANC.
And it is true.
Is
and
it
it is true. Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi has the requisite experience to do this job.
Joy, wind it up for us as you...
You called the ANC spokesman. He must ensure that he has plugged for his party. But I must reiterate what my fellow panelists have said. In fact, congratulations on a very eminent and a very able panel this morning. One of the things that Kenyans care about is delivery. They're not even concerned about who delivers, as long as there is delivery. Yes. That's what we've seen in Nairobi, that there has been the NMS and there has been the Sonko county government. And when you talk to Kenyans on the street, they have some sympathy for Sonko because they voted for him, but they are glad that NMS is delivering. And that's why there are no riots in the streets demanding, give us back our governor. It's because Kenyans care more about delivery than they care about the intrigues of who did what, who betrayed who did. And so that's something I think our politicians need to grow. We don't care what facts you have, we don't care what you do. If at the end of the day you deliver to Kenyans, you're welcome to play your games for as long and as much as you want. However, on the other hand, we also have to admit we do not have much time.
Right.
Before the next election comes round, we have basically this year. By January next year, the entire talk there'll be nominations in March, there'll be elections in August, and after elections, it takes us a while before we settle down. So this is the year when, if there's something that ought to be done, this is the year to get it done. And my encouragement would be to government to just stop being sidetracked. Do what you need to do. Deliver what you need to deliver. Even for the politicians.
Yes.
This is the crunch time. If you're laying strategies, for example, ANC, they're very keen on taking power. You can see that they are organizing. This is the time to do it. So even as individual parties, this is the time to start thinking, what is our vision for Kenya and how can we articulate it? Because in terms of the Jubilee government, it's in the winding down now. This is the last year to sort of wrap up everything and tie it off with a ribbon.
Indeed,
so for moving forward, we need to start getting that imagination of what Kenya tomorrow would look like. And so this is the time to start selling that dream.
All right. Thank you so much. We're closing it. Make it 30 seconds. Make it 30 seconds. Knowing that, from what we hear, Jubilee has failed us.
Really, I don't want even to indulge with issues to do with Jubilee. I only want to tell my panelists issues to do with Ruto's running away with their programs or with their manifesto. I would say they had time enough to exercise their manifesto. It cannot be only in the locals forever until when they expect to rule this country. No, whether they're in government or not, Mudavadi is capable of starting doing something. show us what you are expecting to come to do to us. But you cannot say
been at the top of the helm at
you
some
cannot
point.
be permanent.
No, he has done a lot for this
just
country.
talking,
Yes.
and no single action.
Just
start showing us.
Linda, latitude of
We're
1
closing
minute.
it. I don't know whether he's done much. To,
1 minute,
for,
not
for
much.
people. No, 1 minute
We
is
know
too
we
much.
know the track record of Musalia Mudavadi.
Do we?
And yes, we
100%.
know when he was in Treasury, when he was in agriculture, transport, local government, all
Okay.
these, many Kenyans know that he has done. In fact, his name is flourishing in the reputation of being a performer.
He's probably
but
just
beyond
amongst
that, even the NASA manifesto was a copy-paste of ANC manifesto. Where it was written ANC, it was changed to NASA. Right now, instead of the deputy president implementing the Jubilee manifesto, he is now copy-pasting the ANC manifesto.
So someone
The
spoke
Uchumi
about
Bora
the
manifesto.
tortoise. If you're in the race of tortoises or tortoise, you do not go out there bragging that you probably have done much. I don't know whether he's done
No, we
much.
are not in
and
government.
I'm not trying to suggest
but
that.
despite the fact that we're not in government,
Yes.
we are sponsoring bills through our MPs.
All right,
and
we
you've seen
close
that.
it.
I've cited the many examples.
We close it at that. Joining us via Skype, Joy Mudivo,
Yeah, very good friends of
Executive
government.
Director of East Africa Center for Law and Justice, Nathaniel Mungare, ANC Youth Spokesperson, and James Gakuya, Member of Parliament, Embakasi North. It was good having you this morning. We close it at that. Thank you for your feedback back at home, and thank you for watching us. Do not go anywhere because we still have more coming your way on Matters Social Life after this break.
When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind. Every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind. Every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how
When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's TV47, the home of untold stories.
And so last week, we spoke about the boy child. Well, most of the times the conversations are triggered by the events of the day. And that's why we say that is where the mistake is. Because sometimes we tend to sit pretty until, things go south is when we realize, oh, actually we were supposed to be talking about this. And for a moment, we kept quiet about it. But all the same, what's important is that we get a chance to speak about the ills and the positives of the society. So yes, last week we were talking about how best do you get to grow this boy child, to being a man that is well shaped, a man who's a family man, a man who's a career person, a man who, when you look at them, you feel like, this is a person that is instrumental in the society. And so we looked at just what really gets us to a point whereby we do not do this right. Is it parenting? Is it the fact that we are always absent? Is it the fact that we, I don't know, what kind of society are we raising in the men that we are raising? Because, well, you bring up a man, in the good way, give them proper values, you can be rest assured that across we'll have some of these values, instigated in our very own young turks, and together we make a better society. And so we are extending this conversation today, having had a fruitful one, and I mean due to public demand, then we want to extend it some, a notch further. And most of the times you'd hear parents complaining that, well, this baggage has really been laid upon us, and a lot of complaints and fingers pointed at us, and it's not always the case. So we really want to understand in this process of parenting, and when we talk about parenting, we know that it cuts across the society. It goes to that level of the teacher and all that. What are some of the things that we should do that will influence how we raise this boy child. And yes, no, that is not to say that we overlook what it is that should be done for the girl child, but we say we just make it a little bit special. And come last week, we all thought that, well, after that conversation, maybe nothing much is going to happen, nothing negative is going to happen. But again, that very week and coming to this week, so much has happened on the negative side. And this involves the boy child. And so we keep asking ourselves, why and why? Why is it that even as we talk about it, nothing much seems to happen? And so we'll be talking about influencing factors on how we get to raise our boy child. The very same panel that I had last time of Dr. Julius and Dr. Jane Kimani. It's good to have you this morning. And we're looking forward to a great conversation. They are relationship experts. They're experts in so many things that are in line with social life, and we hope to get so much insights that will be helpful to us. And to this conversation where we left it at the other time, we said, well, parenting has a huge role in terms of getting the generational gaps, and a couple of things that we talked about. You can always grab that on our social media platforms. But as we get to continue this, or as we get to take this a notch higher, maybe I should start on this random one. In most cases, you've been told, even as a woman, that you cannot run away from this abusive marriage simply because there are kids that are involved. And so when you run away, you deny them, that family unit, you deny them that other partner, that, a father figure. And so then that means they are going to be raised in a way that is not proper. Is there any level of truth in this statement?
I would say, I would compare it to a nation in chaos. For example, we have seen Sudan has been in chaos.
Yes.
We have seen Somalia in chaos. Now, saying that you will stay in that nation so that you can raise up your kids probably because they like the nation, then you are creating a probability that even those kids or those people who will be there will die there. So that's why we see people running into a nation to a safe haven so that they can have peace. So in the same context of marriage, we cannot say that a woman has to stay in an abusive marriage so that the children can have a father. One of the things that you're doing is that you're creating sons and daughters who, number one, may do the same thing in their generation. They look at a situation and they say, we learned from our father that the only way to make a woman to behave, in quotes, is to then beat the woman or be violent to her. The girl on the other side will look and say, okay, it is acceptable. If a man hits me, then I think that is okay. So I think that is a wrong narrative. I would say it is good to work out your marriage, but there are times when you look at a situation and you say, I would rather separate with this man because the values that will be passed on to this boy will be values of violence and chaos in the life of everybody else.
All right, then in that case, I'll ask the family unit, how then, how instrumental is it in, being an influencing factor on how we raise the boy child in particular, and just what is this that we call a family unit?
Lovely. Okay, let me start by talking about what is a family unit.
Yes.
I'm going to talk about a traditional family unit. Traditionally, a family unit has got both parents and children.
Yes.
And if we extend it a bit more, a cultural tradition family unit has both parents, the society, and the immediate family in the nuclear.
Right.
Which are the grandparents and whoever. And why do we include the society? Take it or leave it, whether they're included in books or not, they are part of a traditional setup.
Yes.
Because a child belonged to the society. And that's why the society came to celebrate when their success. The society came to celebrate perhaps their marriages, their whatever, their rituals to the next level. Perhaps somebody has decided, you know what, I want to go abroad. The whole society would come and perhaps put in some money. So I would say that was then. But as we are growing, getting a bit more modernized, a bit more westernized, we are trimming off a lot from our family, and that is causing a lot of chaos because we are trimming off the parents, the immediate grandparents, and the society. And so we are leaving the family to you and your child, period. Actually, we've even trimmed off the teachers, who I believe should be part of the social system, the ecosystem. They should be part of that system of the family.
Right.
So when we trim them off completely, we discover that at the end of the day, you are left with your child, and God did not create it that way. So when we talk about the influencing factors from the family setup, I want to talk of the now family. The now family has got two things. We are either two parents or one. And it doesn't mean that because you're one, it will not be successful.
Okay.
We've had single parents or one parent, one home family parent, could be the mother only or the father. It's either way. And they've really raised a very successful young man. And when they trace back, they can say, yes, I had a bit of imbalance, but have become, and today I'm happy because mommy or daddy put a lot of effort into me being who I am.
Before you even finish or expound some more on that, let's face it. I don't know whether it's a myth or, you know, based on our day-to-day activities, we probably have witnessed this. There's some level of interference that comes along with the fact that, you know what, these parents are not working out things together. And so reality is that sometimes I would say there's some level of positivity that culminates from this based on how you raise this child, and they would look at you and say, you know what, having seen what has happened, I think I need to go out there and be the best for the sake of my mother, to make my mother proud, to make it easy for them. But, you know, a larger percentage probably paints a picture of how negative things and nasty things can get when, you know, it's only one parent that is actually raising this particular child. And maybe that's what informed what you said the other time, that sometimes it's good to find a father figure for this child. Sometimes it's good to find, well, a mother figure for this particular child if you are that one man who's raising them one-handedly.
Let me say this, Linda. There are so many people who have raised, women I would say, have raised good men. And it's because, one, when they were faced by the situation that came to them that they had either to separate or they had to raise their child on their own because a man refused to marry them, they took it positively. And you see, positivity is an energy that is passed on. That child can be able to see that you're actually doing a huge thing to raise them up. And sometimes the success has also come because of something in our default. We probably also reach out for help. Now you'll find women who reach out for help from responsible men are likely also to raise up very good boy child.
Right.
And one thing I want to say, and maybe I've said this before, and it's good for any woman to pay attention, and even a man, because this influences any boy that is being brought up. I said last time that 0 to 6 years, those are moments of connecting and bringing up a child who is emotionally stable.
Okay.
And that child much more connects with the mother because at that moment, the mother is the one who is like the caretaker at that level.
Right.
But from 6 to 14, I was doing a study and I discovered there is a hormone that is inside a boy that is called MIS, Mullerian inhibiting substance. What it does is, number one, to kill anything that is woman in a boy.
Okay.
So you suddenly find a boy will begin to gravitate towards a father or any man. And that time a woman can feel rejected because they are wondering, why is the boy now interested in men, a boy instead of the women, instead of women. And what do I do? What do you do at this particular time? As a woman, it is a time to look for responsible men who can be able to be in contact with this boy, because at this time he just wants to learn how to be a man. Something is driving him towards that direction. And if he falls into the hands of the wrong groups, then he'll end up either being in a gang because he's looking for any man figure who can influence him. He can either fall into good hands that can raise him up. So it is good to be so sensitive between the age of 6 to 14 that you make a deliberate effort as a woman to have men around that young man to nurture him. Even if he's not talking to him, just connecting with them, seeing what they do, and that will change a lot in the life of that child.
Wow, that's incredible. You know, sometimes when some of these conversations are ongoing, you can almost relate, you know, and now you get answers to some of the questions that you probably had, you know, as a mother. And most mothers will tell you after, you know, being close to them, and then they get to 6, and then all of a sudden, they run away from the kitchen, and now they're in the living room probably watching. And then you start asking yourself, is there something that I'm not doing right?
I know. I've been there. I've been there.
Yes.
And you almost feel like, what's wrong with these young ones?
Yes. You get to that point. And so in that case, I'd ask myself, age is one factor that we probably have seen. in this particular setup, you know, in the process of growing this child, maybe as you expound on your initial point, what are some of these factors, notable factors, that one needs to look at or to look into, you know, in terms of how they will influence this child positively and negatively?
Yeah, now, building on the family, I was coming up to this point. Children are born what you call tabula rasa, as clean as a slate. Their brains know nothing. They've got a brain that needs something to be written on. They acquire knowledge.
Yes.
They learn by imitation. So the immediate family and the environment that you expose them to while growing is now the writer, is the pen that writes into their brain who they need to become, what they need to believe, and the ethics they need to have, and the social moral standards that they need to keep.
Right.
So this is where the family is so important. If they grew in an abusive family, as Dr. was saying, then they are taught, and it is ingrained in them, that the way out is violence. If they are perhaps exposed just to violent movies, and I usually tell parents, be very careful of what your children are watching in your absence. The cartoons that you expose them to as they are growing. At times it's just about guns and killing and everything. No. What do you ingrain and write in that clean slate? That when you're faced with a situation, go for a gun, go for a knife, go for these. What are the conversations around them while growing? Because that's the stage at which they become a person. Who do they become? Also be very careful about the person who is their minder, the house manager, the child, the person who is bringing up the child. What words do they speak to this child? At times they may not be the child, but they are abused with words. So anger begins to well up. And they learn, you know what? When you annoy me, I also unleash to you some few words. So I think as a parent, it is up to us to decide and tell whoever takes care. Like for us, for example, we told the teachers of our children, when our children go wrong, punish them, use proper punitive measures, but not the wrong words. Don't write into their lives failure. Don't write into them that you are foolish, you're stupid, you didn't finish your homework. No, let the punitive measures be at least have positive results.
All right. And then I would want to believe that is on the environmental, or largely on the environmental perspective. There are a couple of other factors that probably one would look into: biological, interpersonal relationships. In a way, we've talked about the interpersonal relationships and how they relate with the people around them. You know, the early environmental and experiences that they get to have that probably tend to shape what it is that they become in future. Just how instrumental is this? And then how do you get to that point where you are alive to this, looking at the generational differences, you are alive to this, looking at the fact that there's probably not much time to do this. You are alive to this, looking at the fact that yes, there's you in their life, but there's also the world out there that carries along other people.
You see, one thing that I think even the creator, you know, when God created the world, I think he wrote and he spoke. And it means that the way to make sure that the environmental factor, there are good ones and there are bad ones.
Yes.
When we look at every situation that is happening, it is, as a parent, you make sure you create conversations. And you create conversations. I will say this, one of the things, boys don't learn when you face them direct. They tend not to. You'll find most boys are not so comfortable looking at faces. You'll find they will tend to have a conversation, because that to them is like a confrontation. They tend to have a better conversation when you are side by side. And I say, if you're a single woman, have a conversation with your son when you're doing something together, probably in the kitchen, in the sitting room, side by side, and he will tend to listen. Secondly, boys learn better when they hear stories, things that relate. So don't tell a guy just don't drink. Sit down with that, give him a story of a life of something that happened. It will remain in his mind much more than anything else. So when it comes to changing what is influencing those people, remember conversations. Have constant conversations, and not long ones. because boys tend to lose their focus very
Pretty
easily.
fast,
They'll
yeah.
be looking at this side, the next thing they want to go in the other direction.
Yeah.
So have short conversations
Wow.
and let them be impactful. When they ask questions, and that is where sometimes as parents fail, even
We
men.
run away from the
Oh,
questions.
when you ask question, you tell that kid that's stupid. But you don't realize that most children, and I'm also saying as boys, they learn like when you go, when you go to before we used to throw envelopes into the boxes or
Yes.
sliding something under the door.
Under the door.
It's like they open. That's the way their mind open. So when they ask questions, they're saying, this is a window of opportunity for you to teach me something. They may have asked about a car, but you probably want to teach them about how to relate with women. So that is a time to slip in what is important at that particular moment.
Okay.
So you have to be, as a parent, as a teacher, as anyone that is influencing a boy child outside there, you have to be so sensitive on the timings and when to deliver the right thing into their brains.
All right, as
Yeah.
you are sensitive on this, Dr. Jane, the aspect of identity. And in most cases, we tend to get some of this information when we are way old. You're being told, you have to identify your purpose, you have to know what it is that you want in life. Sometimes they say, that at an early and tender age, you probably do not want to bombard them with what it is that they can be in future. And so you're giving them time to grow. At what point do you incorporate values and factors that will influence how they get to get into that character and understand their identity and what it is that they want to be in future?
Lovely, a good question. We're taught that children begin to show who they are from the age of 2 to 3. Now, talking about boys, boys are wired for movement. Boys will not sit still, they won't. So they are wired for movement. In the essence of movement, you'll see what they're gravitating towards. And that's why we talk about intentional parenting. You will always observe what they're gravitating towards, because the Maker wired everybody for their destiny. So, but at times we try to change the wiring and wire it ourselves to what we didn't become, and we want them to fulfill it for us.
Okay.
And that's why we fail. So I will say, like, for example, let me give an example for a son. While he was yet but very young, I would go to church, and after we were done with church, he would run to the keyboardist and start hitting on the keyboard. It was like 2 years. And so what did we do? We got a Katoy keyboard. He grew up from there. Now, we took him to music school to learn keyboard. Right now, he's in the university, he's studying music. He's at the place of his strength. He's in the fullness of his joy. When you get a boy child from what they want, because we feel like, we wanted you to be an engineer, I wanted to be called the mother of an engineer. No, it's not about you. It's about him.
Okay.
And many times we steal from them their joy. And when we steal from them their joy, there is a void and an emptiness. And with that emptiness, they fill with every vice. Because they're doing it for you, not for them, but because there's something that has been snatched from their lives, suddenly there's a void that wants to fulfill something else. And that's why we begin to say, I don't know why, he's been a good boy, but he got to this level and now he has changed. He was about to choose his subjects in Form 2, and you insisted he has to do math, physics, chemistry, and this boy is looking at the physics teacher and he's wondering, exactly what are you discussing here? Because perhaps he's not wired for that. I want him to take the art subjects or the literatures, and he's wired for science. I always say parents will always observe what their children gravitate towards. Another thing, listen to their conversation. A mistake we do as parents, we talk to them and we keep talking to them and we keep feeding them with information. And because boys are slow to speak, we need to understand that because of I think one day we'll teach about how they're wired, their brain is wired. Because of the separation, their speech is low. It is slow. So they're not very quick to speak what they want to say. So especially as mothers, we get so impatient.
I know.
We're even finishing their sentences for them. And for them, it gets so frustrating, and they swallow up a lot of anger, and they feel like, I'll not talk to you again. So when you want them to talk, they've already discovered you're at a point of frustration. So we need to give them time to talk And over time, periodically, ask them, what do you think? Because again, you know, it shifts with time.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen to them, get their vision from them and help just nurture the vision. Just become, you know, like their caretaker. Nurture their vision, pamper their vision, direct them. Always is to direct them, but let them live their purpose, which is already ingrained inside of them.
Exposure. And in most cases, you will hear this, you know what, the exposure that one got, you know, got them to a world that was vast with so much. And then it was easier for them to literally identify that one thing that they want to do. And I mean, look around, these kids who've been exposed to, you know, the world out there, negatives, positives, and all that, most of the positives, in comparison to this one that has just lived with this particular cocoon, you tend to evidently see the difference. And sometimes as a parent, within this cocoon that you live in, or within this space that, you know, the heavens have decided to put you in, you tend to feel like, you know, I mean, this child will only pick what is within this place. And in most cases, that's why you're told as a dad, now you have to be very careful on what it is that you do. So if you're so much into music, this person is just going to focus on that, and that's all that will project coming out from him. And in real sense, sometimes it's not always what it is that they would execute best. So how then do you get themselves to that level where at least they will enjoy enough exposure for you to pinpoint that one thing that would interest them, as opposed to them going by what it is that they have seen the mother doing, or what it is that they have seen the father using. I mean, I'll tell you, 3/4 of the music I sing today is, and I enjoy so much so, is because my dad used to love it, and so we could listen to probably reggae or country music. It is because my mom was so much into Tarab, and so I got myself into Tarab. Maybe I never had that chance to say that, you know, this is the kind of genre of music that I love and enjoy that.
Wow, that's interesting. You know, one thing I've realized, and I will say this because it's an experience that I had. We grew up where we're not exposed. The only game that you would play in that estate is either football or, you know, that kati.
Yes.
So even boys would play it because those were the only two games you would play.
Know.
And so you realize there was so much limitation. But I remember one teacher, and I don't know whether he's still alive, but that teacher in Martin Luther was a wonderful teacher. He was called Mr. Mohoro.
Yes.
Mr. Mohoro would always come with a book and read to us stories when we were in class 4.
Okay.
He would throw our minds to South Africa. We would see the mines that we had never seen.
Yeah.
He would take us to New York City through reading books. And he opened our minds to see possibilities.
Yes.
And I wish so many parents can also realize that they can throw their children into a world of imagination through the power of books.
Sometimes they want to go there very fast. I'll
Yes.
tell you this, every time now we have a conversation with my little boy.
Yes.
And he's like, you know, I really want to experience snow. I really want to experience snow. Snow itakuja siku gani, and all these things. And that is not the problem, because you find there are things that really are worth, and you'd love for them to get to know,
Yes.
but then they're taking you a little bit too fast, and this is not in existence. How do
Yes.
you handle that?
Now that is a place where, as a parent, you tell them this snow cannot be found within our location.
Okay, so that's a
Number
learning
one,
process.
it
Okay.
will take a lot of money for us to go where the snow is.
Okay,
And
so you
therefore,
had to
I want us to work hard together.
Okay.
So that we can be able to make this money, and so that one day we can go to those places where the snow is.
Yeah.
So as a parent, you are like a policeman, you know, or the signboards that we have on the road. Sometimes they'll tell you there are cows crossing, so they tell you slow down. Others will tell you a very sharp corner. So we are the signboards that we are given to be to these children. We'll tell them slow down. This thing, you're going so fast.
Yeah.
There's a sharp bend around here. So I want you to see what is ahead, but at the same time realize that you cannot go fast towards that direction.
Okay.
So we can use books, we can use movies, and that is why it's so important. You know, nowadays we live, as Doctor was saying here, we leave our kids to watch anything. But when you sit down with our children, we are even able to pinpoint some issues. Like, that was not a good word. That was not a good gesture. So we need to change a few things here and there. And out of that, it becomes a learning experience. Up to today, I remember with our, for example, our son and daughter, we brought some movies from our days. You know, like the way you're saying there are songs that you remember of the 80s.
Yes.
There were movies that we used to watch in the 80s, and I brought them to their world.
All right.
And they were able to experience the kind of life we lived. But somehow, along those movies, you're teaching them, you're telling them, by the way, what that guy did is not right.
Okay.
And they pick a few things from there. So we have so much material that you can use. to shape the world of our boys. Yes.
All right, let's talk gender, which I think is also an influencing factor. And we talk a lot of identity crisis and all this. So all these things that we're talking about will probably shape one's identity. How then does gender come in to shape the identity and the growth of this particular person? Today we talk about the boy child, the guy child. That's purely everything to do with gender. But how then do we talk of this or have these conversations and, you know, still get these people holding their shoulders high, their head high, knowing that, well, in my own special gender, I am perfect, I am good, and this is what is expected of me. And I mean, even as it is expected of me, it is not like it's a must that this has to be achieved.
Yeah, the one thing I would like to talk especially to parents who've got boys and at whatever age, they need to make them understand that you need to have one competitor, and the competitor is yourself.
Okay.
Work at being the best that you can be. You know, boys are naturally competitive. All the men are wired for competition.
Yeah.
And as we keep saying, you observe two men driving. They don't know each other. Perhaps the car next looks like yours, or perhaps it's like both this around the same time, and one overtakes, and the other one will keep overtaking. Hamjuani.
You know, you're rushing to different directions.
Yes, there's a quiet competition because there's a hormone released in them, testosterone, that helps them to compete and achieve.
Okay.
Now comes a problem when you're bringing up a boy and a girl, and you've got a girl perhaps who is achieving more in a certain area than this boy who has a competitive hormone in them.
Yeah.
I always tell parents, let this boy be the boy that he is and never compare two children.
Okay.
Because what one can do doesn't mean that it is exactly what the other one should compete in. Everybody needs to be their own self. Help him to know himself. Nothing is more important than knowing where you've come from, who you are, and where you're going. Write it down with them. As Dr. said, be a post along the way.
Yeah.
Understand who you are wired to become. Understand your dreams, your visions, your hopes, and your aspirations. And at any point, if you do not achieve it to your expectation, the time is still there to make it up. Because at times we beat them down so much with words.
Yeah.
And that's why you find some of them don't even want to be men anymore. They'd rather wear the skirt. Yes. Why? Because they feel like you've given them such a high rating, and if they fall short of the rating, they're thrashed for that.
Okay.
So we need to understand they're not defined by academics only. A man is a man because he's a man. Period. They are not defined by any other success, as much as all this is very important. It is the icing on the cake. They are defined by the values that you have given them. They are defined by the words that you have spoken to them. They are defined by the vision that they have for their own lives. And keep that constantly alive.
Okay.
When that is alive, he has something to live for. I keep saying, give a boy something to live for. If you do not give him something to live for, and you nurture that to live for, then they live for themselves.
Okay.
And when they live for themselves, they become a mess.
Like it. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is interesting. Again, back to the environment, I'd want to assume, or the society, that we've all unanimously agreed that it is not as active as it used to be back then. I remember I could get a spank from my neighbor because I have done a mistake today.
Yeah.
They can never even bother when they're looking at my... Well, I sometimes try to do that, but then on second thought, you know very well that this is likely to land you in trouble.
Yeah.
In the event that something bad happens to this kid, how are you getting yourself to that point where you'll explain, oh, she was doing this and it wasn't proper and I felt like I should come in and all that. But reality is that, again, our children are highly a result of what the environment, the society is like. They'll tell you many muislando damu. And you can literally see that in, even their physical appearance. They'll tell you mini into a leafy suburbs, and it's evidently, you know, portrayed in how they look, how they express themselves, and everything. How then does it come in? And how then, as a parent, would you say it's okay? This is Islando. This is what Islando is all about. But that does not mean it should be written all over your face. And that is not to say that Islando is bad in any way. Yes. Or how do you bring out the best of Islando? Yes.
In every environment.
Yes.
You know what? I've realized that we become what our environment also gives us. And now when we say that we will not interfere when we see a young man doing something wrong, then somebody else will interfere and they will bring that something wrong.
Bad. Okay.
You get it? So you find there are boys who are joining gangs. Why? Because somebody said, I saw him like he was trying to talk to a few guys there, but I didn't feel like interfering.
Okay.
I didn't feel like having a conversation with them. So eventually these boys come back to the same neighborhood, terrorizing the entire neighborhood, and you're saying he's a bad guy. And you saw him when he was about to get into that gang. I have personally, as a man within the neighborhood that I live in, sometimes will interfere in conversation of young boys.
Okay.
And I will tell them what you're doing. Those songs that you're watching there, they are not good songs. And you are not reprimanding them, but you are having a conversation that will put soberness in their mind. Because again, something has happened where every time we think parenting is about shouting, it's about beating. Sometimes it's just having a conversation that when they see you, they kind of respect you. I remember during the COVID season, we agreed, she brought up the idea, because I have done taekwondo, why don't I get a few boys? And because I want to influence them, but I may not be able to influence them if I call them for a talk. But if I can capture what they like, and they begin to do that. And we began to do that, and I saw a big number of those young men totally change, because as we are doing this game, I am injecting some conversation of what you're supposed to do as a young man. And I would suggest that every man, every woman, you need to play a role in those young men that you see. If they are doing drugs, please get into that place and tell them, you don't just tell them you not do this here. Tell them, ask them a question. Do you think what you're doing is right?
Okay.
And throw them into a moment where they can have a conversation with themselves, where they can analyze, they can weigh a few things here and there. But if we just walk away because you think the woman in their neighborhood will come shouting at you, if you talk to their child, then I think we are also being somehow irresponsible and waiting for maybe a disaster to happen in the future.
I feel we should have this more, but then again, time is not on our side. Before we close it, and so back then the spunk was there. No question about it.
True,
and I used to say I hate my mom and I love my dad simply because the dad was not into spanking a lot. My mom was into it. There's no question about it.
We agree.
You know, and as women, you really want, there's that urge. Sometimes you feel like, you know, a spank would do better than just sitting this person down. And sometimes they even say they don't even listen to us more. But you know, when the dad just says action, they are getting into character and they're doing whatever it is that they're supposed to do right. If we are to make a comparison, which one works best? Sitting them down and, you know, just having this conversation, or the spank, honestly? I swear the road spoiled the child, remember?
I'm talking to such a traditional parent who believes in the spank, that it shaped us to who we are today. Even while growing, you know, those younger years, my mom never waited for my dad. My dad was not like your dad, very gentle. You know, we'll want to talk and just forget it, go eat and sleep. But my mom, wait until the day leaves tomorrow. The eye now tells the whole story. We are back to yesterday. So I'll say this, there's an age at which a child will require discipline. But I say never use your hand, because your hands are meant for love. Never hit your child with your hand, because that hand is meant for comfort, especially a mother or even a father. Get a slipper or something and let them know before you have this conversation, because you've not done this twice. For now, I'm going to give you 1, 2. It is not meant to kill them. It will not, but just give them on the bum 1, 2, and they know the discomfort, because somehow that memory of the connection will tell them I should not go this direction. But that should not be like dictatorial, that anytime you're wrong, pa, your bum, no. Have a conversation, but there's an age they'll not be able to understand. But at a certain age while growing, you don't need to beat your children. From the age of 5 years, that time they can hear and listen, and also you learn to be a reasoning parent. Another thing, never spank your child because you're angry, frustrated with him, and you're beating out the frustration from your heart. Because our parents used to do that. They would beat you until you're wondering, am I the reason?
Yeah.
Or was there something else?
happening?
Because at times we beat them with anger. We need not beat them. If there needs to be a punitive measure, withdraw their rights. At a certain age, it works better by you withdrawing their rights. While you tell them at the age of 4, 5 going on, you've done these, yes, then I'll not give you what they like, perhaps an ice cream. Even at the age of 3, if they can listen to you, tell them, then I'll not give you your ice cream.
That is a good
and now they associate the pleasure of an ice cream has been denied because of what I did, then I've learned better. But first of all, have a conversation before you can withdraw the right. At the end of the day, I've come to discover, I think if our parents knew, instead of so much fight, they'd also have learned to withdraw our rights. But did we have any?
Did you have any in the first place? Was there? All right, we close it at that. I will assume we have reached age 14.
Yes.
And so we've talked about raising this kid up until age 14.
Yes.
And probably there's need for us to expound it further on understanding. So after age 14, transitional processes, transitional crises that they witness, and they have nobody to speak to. We probably should have this conversation some other time, expound it some more. And that we cross fingers that it should be next week. It was good having you, Dr. Jane Kimani and Dr. Julius Kimani. Thank you so much for the great insights. We're looking forward to more and more of these conversations because they're really instrumental, if at all we have to shape a better, environment.